All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. It's Friday. At least for me, it is. For some of you over on the other side of the prime meridian, about 800 miles away or 1,000 miles away, whatever that is from where I'm at. I'm in California. It is tomorrow for you. That's why I say good morrow for those of you depending on where and when you are in the world. Okay, so it's the law of one because it's Friday, so we're going to be talking about that, and you guys get a spiritual insight that is in my book, up and coming, that hasn't been printed yet, published yet, but will be, and my further books. You guys in the class get, and those of you around the world listening on MP3 podcast, wherever it is that you get your podcast, literally you guys get an insight that, literally I talk about offline. One of my sisters that I talk to, she tunes in and she says, everything that you talk about there, you and I talk about, you always tell me, you've already told me all that stuff before you're even on the air. And I laugh because that's the truth. If you talk to me when you're, off air, you get far more information packed into the time that I use to talk to you than I can give you here, because then you can ask me direct questions and you have my full attention, which means you can ask as many questions as you want, especially if you're paying me to do it, because then I'm exclusively helping you. So welcome, Denise. Hi, I see you in the chat there. Let's show this out. Like I said, show this out, show this out, show this out. And we finished the session. I think we're on session 22 now, 21 and 22. Peter, welcome, my brother. What is it, like 11 p.m. or something for you? You're like 8 hours ahead of me. So 3, 6, 7, 8, or I got to be like 11 p.m. over there in the UK. You're on UK time in Ireland. So please, and thank you for sharing my video. I see that, Peter. You shared my video. Thank you very much. So we're on session 22. I believe it's 22 that we're on. We'll find out when I start it. I just edited it. When I say that, I change only. I add an H to the word raw because the computer program will say either I am RA or that's it, usually on this computer program. So I add the H there. And when I do that, then the computer says I am raw. So it's the only thing that I do edit when I edit. I put the H after the word raw everywhere, all the way through every single session. And then, of course, I give it a voice, which is called Mark, by the way, by this computer program. It's an American accent Mark, M-A-R-K, not like a Marxist, but Mark as a person's name. So it's probably the person who is speaking, and they used his voice, and his name was probably Mark. So they named it, because there's another one, I think it's called Paul. And then there's a couple of female voices, at least one, maybe two. But I use Mark because it's a softer, right? Yeah, Peter, it's 11. Yeah, that's what I thought. And then Australia is 15 or 16 hours ahead. So they're like, what is that, 7, 8 in the morning? Like South Africa is 7 in the morning or something like that, 7 or 8 in the morning for those people over there. It's that far of a distance because we're almost just on the other side of the prime meridian. The only place that's behind me in time is Alaska and Hawaii, right? Everybody else. I said, like I said last week, and I think a few Pacific islands, Fiji maybe, and Samoa, I think, are just about, and of course Easter Island. So if you're on the Easter Island looking at the Rapa Nui, you're actually, I think you're on the same time zone. I don't know that you're behind me much. If anything, like 30 minutes. You're just further south. Okay. So none of that's really that important. Like I said, share this out. So we are on session 22, I believe. Like I said, I don't have the camera on, and I've been hearing from some of the fans that bothers them a little bit because they can't see. And I used to have it up all the time where you see me, right? I can take this banner down and you could see me while I'm talking, but you just see my ugly mug over here while I'm talking. I can put myself up in full screen like this, but if you're listening to Raw and I'm sitting here doing this, right, I'll have to put a virtual background and make it look better. Otherwise, you're just seeing the hutch here and the hutch there, right? And the Jesus stuff up here on the top. This is my mom's stuff. There's the shepherd, the good shepherd right there. next to the cross. That's all my mother's stuff that she had up there. So everybody, if I show this, then I get feedback from people going, see, there's your Christian stuff coming out. And I'm like, you're right, I am a Christian minister, but that's not my motivation for all of this at all. But it's a title that I have. I also have a Merlin title, which is a Druid title. I also have a Jedi Master title, which is very Eastern philosophical thought. So it's, you know what I mean? So it's not, I've had people say that, well, if you're a Christian, then how can you, what makes me think that you're not interpreting all these scrolls for the Christian twist? Have you ever listened to the way I speak? Christians hate me, and they're going to hate my book, honestly. So is all other religions. I'm not going to get, like I do now, I get kickback from or opposition from everyone, because they don't want it to be, they all want it to be the status quo the way it is now. They make trillions of dollars, they make billions a year, all these churches around the world, keeping things the way they are now, which is actually against the way these ascended masters were actually teaching. Let me put myself out of full screen so you don't have to look at my face, and put this back up so when people tune in, they know what we're talking about. But the truth is, if you're listening in the MP3 broadcast around the world, you don't see any of these visuals anyway, so it doesn't matter. You're actually tuned in just to hear. So it doesn't matter to you guys. It's not that I'm catering to that crowd. It's just that having my camera on and staring at the camera while I'm talking, if I have a guest, that's one thing, or if I'm being interviewed by someone, that's one thing. But if it's just me talking, isn't that kind of pointless? But some of you, it bothers you. I get emails and messages saying that, and some people probably don't say a word and they just tune out. But other people's are tuning in. Okay, so whatever, man. If you want to hear the knowledge, you get to hear the knowledge. If you have to see my face, then book me. Right? Book me and I will talk to you FaceTime. I do it all the time. So if you need to see my eyes and my face, then let me know and we'll talk. And I do that all the time. I do it for free and I do it for money. Just depends on what exactly that you want to get out of our conversation. If you want me to help you spiritually or financially or otherwise, I've written a book about that. It's financial, and how to get out of debt. Also, life coach. So if you want all that, you go to my not my website. I don't have that up yet. But go to my Facebook page or look at my reels, and you'll see my price offerings for those teachings. And I've been doing it for over 35 years now. So it's not like I'm brand new at doing this. Okay. So just so you guys know. All right. So let's continue. Let's start with Ra in this session. And somebody let me know. And this time I'll actually put my glasses on and look at the chat, so I know if you guys actually tell me if the sound is loud enough and you can hear it okay. And if not, I'll adjust it and turn it up. Okay. So this is, it'll give you the date. I believe it's session 22. I think we're still in 1981 though. Let's start.
February 10th, 1981. 22.0 Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the infinite creator. I communicate now. 22.1 Questioner. The instrument would like to ask a couple of questions of you. I'll get them out of the way first. The instrument would like to know why she smells the incense at various times during the day in various places. Ra. I am Ra. This instrument has spent a lifetime in dedication to service. This has brought this instrument to this nexus in space/time with the conscious and unconscious distortion towards service, with the further conscious distortion towards service by communication. Each time, as you would put it, that we perform this working, our social memory complex vibrational distortion meshes more firmly with this instrument's unconscious distortions towards service. Thus we are becoming a part of this instrument's vibratory complex and it a part of ours. This occurs upon the unconscious level, the level whereby the mind has gone down through to the roots of consciousness, which you may call cosmic. This instrument is not consciously aware of this slow changing of the meshing vibratory complex. However, as the dedication on both levels continues, and the workings continue, there are signals sent from the unconscious in a symbolic manner. Because this instrument is extremely keen in its sense of smell, this association takes place unconsciously, and the thought form of this odor is witnessed by the entity. 22.2 Questioner.
Okay, before we start that, I've gone through that in my life, and some of us do with many different things. When you start becoming spiritual and you start your ascension, that happens more often, and that is exactly the same as deja vu. Sometimes you smell an odor, and sometimes it is because was that grandma? Did I just smell grandma? I smelled her perfume. That's weird. I was just thinking about her. Well, that literally was you thinking about her and manifested her energy. And she was letting you know that she was aware of that she was there present with you. And sometimes it comes through with a smell. And those of you who are mediums, if you're out there listening, you know what I'm talking about. And some of you who have those abilities and you haven't unlocked them yet, you have these abilities within you. And sometimes they start prodding at you to get your attention. I literally tell the story of driving with my ex-wife when we were married at the time. But we were driving, across the desert of Arizona because we lived in Arizona, and we were driving home from Phoenix, and we lived outside of Phoenix, like 45 minutes southeast of Phoenix, in a place called Queen Creek, Arizona, which is huge now, but at the time it was tiny. When she first started building our house there, it was really tiny. 45 minutes away from town to shop. Now town has come there. In any case, as we were driving through the desert on our way home from visiting friends in Phoenix, I get this sensation, the smell and taste. Mel Bean, welcome. I get this smell and taste of mashed potatoes and gravy, and it's just driving me crazy. And I look at my then wife, and I said, "Why am I getting this?" Because we had just eaten and had a couple of drinks. Why am I getting this craving, this taste and smell of mashed potatoes and gravy? And she said, "Oh, what?" Then she realized, and she said, "Wow, oh my God, okay. Today is the anniversary of my grandfather's passing, and his favorite thing in the entire world to eat was mashed potatoes and gravy." And I said, "Okay, he's getting your attention through me to let you know." So that manifests for us, and I've smelled incense many times. That's why it triggered me to pause there at the end of this before we start the next question and talk about that, because it's part of the teaching that I actually teach when dealing with mediumship or any kind of ascension, spiritually, and as a unlocking your senses, to tell people, because it was part of my training as a Merlin growing up, was to be very aware and become very aware of your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, all the things, all of your senses, your hearing, your sight, your what you perceive as thought in your mind that you perceive as yourself. Because if you are going to be channeling other people or talking to spirit guides or whatever, there's going to be other voices in your head that are not personalities that are bleeding into your life, and that you're not schizophrenic. But you also have to discern the difference between the two and learn the different voices and know that's an external voice, not myself. That's not me, my soul, originating that thought. That's someone else that is talking to me. So you have to actually have that and study the differences. In fact, Mel says, let me put up my glasses to read. I didn't realize you said that until I realized I looked down there and I put my glasses on. Mel says, "I'm open-minded and I am someone who can agree or disagree. What others choose to believe is okay with me as long as they are loving beings. I've studied many different spiritual beliefs in being Native American. I'm a little bit Native American. I'm like 5%. I don't look it, but I am. I did my DNA, tested my DNA with Ancestry.com. I don't work for them, but that's just who I use. That's most of those places are the Mormon Church, anyways. It's all of their websites. So I have chosen nature. I agree. I have as well. I was knighted by the Roman Catholic Church back in 2002 or 2004. On the day that Pope John Paul II died, as a matter of fact. So that makes me a minister within the Roman Catholic Church. I can't be a priest because you have to go to their seminary to become a priest. But I did go to the Universal Life Church in Phoenix, Arizona, when I lived in Arizona, and got a Christian ministry license and title and all of that. But that doesn't mean that I could practice that. I could go get hired right now and run a church anywhere in the world for any Christian religion. But I already had, since I was 19 years old, I had the Merlin title, which is the Druid, an ancient priestly title, which is hard to even find now. They don't. It's still not part of the mainstream. If you look up Druid Merlin, you're going to get ancient stuff from before, but then nothing about. Unless you like pick up the book, which is still rare to find. I just linked it last week, the 21 Lessons of Merlin. You can't even find, I can't, the 18 Lessons of Merlin. And I was actually taught both. So I've had that religious title since I was 19 and I'm 56, right? 55. I got to figure out what year it is. I'm 55. So I'll be 56 this year. So that was my first title. And then, of course, somewhere around 2001, I got a Jedi Master title, which is the same priestly title in a religion that most countries still don't officially, quote unquote, with my fingers, recognize. However, you can list yourself in the UK or the United States and Canada as a Jedi and a Jedi Knight or a Jedi Master, and you can actually have that put on your dog tags. But they won't officially say it's a religion to let people open a synagogue, church, whatever you want to call it. But the military has acknowledged it as a religion. And down in Australia and especially New Zealand, where the council was, I don't even know if it's still there. That might have folded, but that's where I got my title from. And that was, like I said, 2001 or 2002, somewhere back then as well. Okay, but I've done the same thing, Mel, is my point. I know that was a long story. I've done the same thing. I've even spoken in churches and the like about religion, but because of what my father had taught me, which was the Merlin title, but not only that, I asked as a boy, are we Christian? We lived across the street from a Mormon church. Are we Christian? And he said to me that I should learn in all religions and figure out whether one of those fit for me. And that was the beginning of me learning every single religion on the face of the earth. And I still do it to this day. Literally, prior to the show today, was listening to the Corpus Hermeticum, which is, if you've ever read the Hermetica or any of that stuff has been taken from the Corpus Hermeticum. And the Corpus Hermeticum is taken from another scroll that came out of Egypt, but they don't have, it's not Hermes, and it's not, although it was, I think, attributed to Hermes. And then Thoth was written from those as well. So if you listen to Thoth, Thoth, depends on where you're at, potato, tomato, that was based on that as well. It's not actual, but it was based on the Hermetica. And as far as I can find, the Corpus Hermetica, which is a Greek version, is derived from that. It's not been edited at all. It's just literally they took the scroll back to Greece and their lands, probably of the Akkadians at the time, because Arcadia was butted up against Mesopotamia, literally the next country over. They shared a common border of like 5,000 miles. So both of those ancient religions are sort of blended together, and that's why Zachariah Sitchin mistranslated Anunnaki. And now it's one word when he translated it as 3 words when it was actually 2 words. And so that caused issues and still does. And now there's an entire species called Anunnaki, which the word doesn't exist. The god Anu is what he thought was what they were talking about. And so he said the god Anu comes to Earth, which in 2015 2012 to 2015 got mistranslated by Georgios Tsoukalos to rightly on purpose to sell ratings and his magazine and everything, that those from the heavens came. So now it was those. So it became a species. Then it became one word, Anunnaki. This is the stuff that some of us know because we actually study these things. And I've looked this up. Okay. In the beginning, I took Zachariah Sitchin for his word until someone online one day when I was doing my podcast said, bro, no, he's been proven wrong. And I said, really? Because I always say anything that I say to you, don't believe a word I say. And oh, thank you. I didn't know that. Okay. Bianca said the Jedi group is still alive and well in New Zealand underground now. Okay. So that's where I got my title from, was when they were back in 2004, at the time, 2001, 2, 3, 4, somewhere around there. It was after 9/11 here in the United States. I know that. So that was in 2001. So I literally was. I didn't go to New Zealand, but they had a online temple, and I was in that online temple studying with the masters, and they actually gave me the Jedi Master title because of me being a Merlin and having that title. And I was actually at the time being knighted by the Roman Catholic Church, and they were aware of that. So they were like, "Okay, bro, you're definitely a spiritual mind," and they gave me the title. And then, but it's hard to find. So thank you, Bianca, for letting me know they're still there. But they all had to go underground, and I understand that. Look at the Wiccan religion. In the Europe and northern, western, southern Europe had to be underground for about 400 years. And it was literally until the modern day when they just started back up in the world because they got the rights of religious freedom in the United States, the UK, and other countries that wouldn't give up the Bohemian way and stuff like that. They finally opened up that door for people religiously. And so now because of that, everyone has come back out. I mean, literally, it's hard still to find a Merlin school because that's still underground. And the reason for that is that you can't just claim that title. You either know it or you don't. You're either a magi or you're not. And I don't have a certificate because you don't get one because that's not important, never has been. So anyone who wants to doubt me, they can. They can just say, dude, you have no proof that you're a Merlin. Okay, you're right. You don't believe me? Then, you're right. What makes you think you are Merlin? I don't think anything. I know. I went through 19 years of my life grueling every single day being taught by a master who was my father until I was 19 when he died. And he bestowed upon me the Merlin title. And you can believe it or not believe it. But you pay attention to me long enough, you'll find out that I'm not just making shit up. Right? I am. Some people think I am. They think I'm crazy anyways. So thank you, Bianca, for actually letting me know that the Jedi Council is still alive and well in New Zealand. They just have to hide from the governments. And I know why. They want to shut them down because they're teaching the same old world ways. And that's why I changed the name of one of our groups. Peter GV, who's not here right now, but he was the one who facilitated saying to me, we really need to get back to the old ways. And I'm like, you know what? You are right. We need to sow, because he's also a druid and he doesn't know, he hasn't woken up yet, but he's very close to getting a Merlin title, and he might get one someday, in the right time. He could easily have one. He's already been doing it. And so he was just today, in fact, told by a psychic, when, in fact, Cassie, welcome. We all got readings from her today, Jamie Watson-Wolf, and she told him he needed to basically return to the old ways. And he started laughing about that because she was saying druid stuff. Merlin is telling me to tell you need to help. And there's a lot of stuff that I was laughing. I just didn't say anything to him because it was his moment and I needed him to focus. But I really wanted to have a conversation with him and just laugh and go, brother, it's you who was pushing me in the past 7 years ago to do this. And now Merlin's coming to you from the past and pushing you and saying, dude, you need to help me over here. He's got his finger in this and his toe in that. And he's like, I need you to help plug some of these holes. And she was laughing about that. Right. So I thought that was hilarious. But the point is that if you are a druid, even the druids now, if I say, that I'm a Merlin, they're like, where did you get that? And everybody's all paper oriented. They do that with Reiki. I literally got my first 2 attunements from the Reiki master who invented Reiki when he discovered it on the mountaintop in Japan. And literally then he died, and his wife, who he made a Reiki master teacher, continued teaching. And I don't know if she's still alive. Probably not, because it was a long time ago. She's probably deceased as well. But then I got my attunements literally 1 through 4, and some call it 5 because you get some people break it up. My teacher did from Australia. She broke it up and said master and master teacher. So I still didn't pay her to get my master teacher's license, even though I am. If you're a master, a Reiki master, you're a master teacher. Period. That's the same as if you're a Merlin. You're a freaking Merlin. You're not a. I'm a Merlin, but I can't teach it legally because I don't have the piece of paper that says that. Right. So I don't have the piece of paper that says master teacher on it. But the truth is that was invented in the 21st century, only because to make more money. So they would charge you $500 for master and $500 for teacher. That way they got $1,000 for the master teacher too. That's not a joke. In some places it's that amount even today. Okay, so but thank you for that, knowing that. I know, right? Cassie, get him in here. Cassie's like, Rick, Penny, where are you? Penny was live, Cassie, just before I went live, like a half hour. So I don't know if she was still live when I went live, but I saw that she was live. I just didn't tune in because I was busy getting prepared for this show. So she might be busy doing something, right? And that's the truth, Mel. Most people don't believe until they see, and that's just, it's commonplace, and I get that, right? I don't have an issue with people that way. I tell people to vet me and everyone else. Don't believe a word I've said. Look it all up for yourself. Go down that path. And some people do that. I do the same thing. It takes a long time. Cassie can tell you that, she spent a year vetting me. That's not a joke. Ask her. She'll tell you. She spent like a year before she was sure and certain that I was who I was saying that I was, before she would let me in any way work with her. And I do the same thing with people. And some people go, oh, you're not very trusting. You have to be. When you get in this industry and you're teaching spirituality, the very first thing opposition tries to do is come in and ruin and destroy from within and discredit. That's what they do. So Bianca says, in referring to the Jedi Council, she says, the GBT allowed Jedi status on the census. Wow, that's actually really cool. Which brought a lot of attention to the Jedi Council. So they went incognito, right? Because they were concerned. So she's literally, Bianca's talking about it, because they got concerned that people were going to go crazy, and you're going to have 1 million people join the council and get into the chats. And the next thing you know, it blows up, and then people are fighting and ego gets involved, and they do that on purpose to blow you up. So they were smart in those people who run the Jedi Council. If they're any of the people that were there when I was there, they're very smart people, and very few egos involved in the conversations. So if that's the truth, and they really are acting like the true council, they would have gone underground or incognito, because because they're doing it the real way of, you have to be invited and or vetted. And it's the same thing with if you're going to get knighted by the Roman Catholic Church, you can try and volunteer. I want to become a knight, but then you become a brother knight and you're not knighted yet. And you literally have to go through a way of life training. And then you have to be vetted and invited and vouched for to be knighted, because they don't want the problems that happened during the Crusades with Guy de Lucion and his brother and all those robber knights destroying all the knights from within, which is what happened to the Templar knights and even the Hospitaller knights and all the other orders, which then the church, of course, disbanded because of their greed. The church's greed, the Roman Catholic Church's greed. So literally, we have to watch out for that. I was warned by a psychic about a month ago or less. I think it was 2 weeks ago now, literally 2 weeks ago, that a psychic said, going forward with what we're setting up, which I'm not going to divulge a lot of it yet, because there's a bunch of us working in the background, what there always has been, but you guys don't even realize that, like the Orion Council of Light and the Orion Coalition of Light, working behind the scenes. We just announced to the world that we're even here officially. And of course, that it was a soft sell. We just announced it and set up a group and started talking about it. And psychics were aware of it. They are, most mediums are, and many people who are ascending are aware of the Orion Council of Light, because the council is there with the Council of Venus, as part of the Council of Venus, which is the Council of Planets, or whatever you want to call that, because some people use military terms and they call it the Galactic Council and that kind of stuff, and they have this idea in their head that there's this military force like the United Nations, but that's all 3D thinking and ideology, right? Mel, yes, I do. Mel says, don't you enjoy meeting other people for the first time when they are gifted, or when they're also gifted? It blows their minds. So yeah, both of us. It happens that way when you meet somebody who is very gifted and very awake. It blows your mind, because you go, wow, there is somebody else that knows what I know, and they usually in turn are like, oh, dude, you're so cool, Brewster. You know what I mean? because you're like, oh my stars, there's someone else I can talk to and have an adult conversation, right? Because it's very small. The it's getting bigger, the circle of people that are awake, but when you get to the 4D, 5D, 6D thinking in this third dimensional body, when you're in the densities that are the higher realms, and you're literally looking at the world and realizing they're between 11 and 14 years of age, doesn't matter what their body age is, that they're all children, then it's very, very important to meet other people that are gifted, right? So, yeah, right? No, yeah. Cassie said, upright always, as knights and robbing thieves and liars don't deserve that title. Agreed. And that's why they had to start weaning them out. And so they had to literally make sure you were not in service to self before you get the title. And that's the way it is now. It's rare that you see knights that are in service to self. Sometimes they squeak through, but it's lower than the 14% that are in fact evil on this earth. It's actually very low, like a 1 or 2% of the Knights of Columbus, then 1 or 2% of the now reorganized Templar Knights. It's about 2 or 3% of the Freemasons, only because they open their doors a little bit more. It's not until you get to the higher levels. But again, it's the same with the Knights of Columbus and the Templar Knights. Before you become knighted, before you're a 33rd degree Master Mason, they have to vet you and you have to be invited. So it's the same. So you still have within your ranks at the lower ranks, you still have 1 to 3 to 4% that are in service to self that you weed out. But it's not 14% like it is in general, because they do use some sense to try and wean out everyone. But you can't catch everybody, just like the Jedi Council will teach and the Jedi Knights showed you in the movies, which people are like, oh, it's just fake. And no, it's not actually. It was based on Eastern philosophical and religious or spiritual thought mixed with Western culture from the Druids. And the Vikings and that religion, or those religions, if you want to break them into masculine and feminine, or aggressive or non. Like the Viking religion, most people think is just that aggressive one where they're conquering the world and destroying and killing and raping and pillaging. That's only the masculine part, and some of that is not even the religion. But there are people that practice that aggressive warlike religion. But that's not the only one. There's the other side of that. The Celts stayed in mostly, and that is actually the dominant religion of all of Europe, and has been for centuries. But because they didn't write anything down, it's hard. It's passed down, and I learned more about that entire stuff. That's why Peter GV, Peter Coyle, who is here or was here in the crowd a minute ago, he has a bigger authority on all of the Celts than even I am. And that's scary, because some people would say, some people call me the history book because of how much I know about all the religions. That's just because I've spent my whole life, literally my entire life, learning everything I can learn about every way of spiritual practice on this earth. There's Rick shows up. Oh, I forgot. How could you forget Friday morning, Rick? I know it's morning over there, Saturday morning for you, because you're in Australia. How could you forget us, right? What? Nice to see you, brother. Nice to see you. Okay, so manifest, to go back into a circle now so that we can continue with Raw. A lot of what manifests for us, sometimes in scent, is coming from our higher self, or as a medium, it's coming from the other side, and that will manifest to thoughts, to sometimes smell, sometimes taste, sometimes vision, sometimes hearing, and all of those are personable or personal to each of us, and what it is that we learn that means to us. Like, for instance, today, Jamie Watson Wolf was saying, he's handing me an apple, and that means this to me. And I remember the Long Island medium saying, I see a person with a rolling pin wearing an apron that to me says cooking, or they like to cook. So you interpret, they give you signs and symbols that are esoteric in nature, that are personal to you, to help you, that you will know and interpret. So it's hard to teach that to people, because you have to teach them. You have to learn your own the things that you get consistently from the other side that you learn mean. So you have to learn the language that is your interpretive language. So it's actually personable to each person, individual to each person. It's not the same across the board. You can get some things that are generalized, but the truth is most of it's not. And it's internalized, which is very Native American in teaching. And I've learned over the years being here in California, only 5% Native, but being 5% is a lot actually for people in this country, unless you are on a reservation and literally part of a clan or a tribe and have a lot of DNA. Otherwise, 5% is actually pretty high in this country for someone who's not. I mean, but that I don't know if it was that or my Celtic nature, which is so similar. And now they're discovering, and this is why I bring this up. Now they're discovering, and have in 2012, they discovered a female that's here in California, not too far from where I'm living here in the capital. I'm in the city next to. I'm in Carmichael, which is a suburb of Sacramento. I'm about 300 miles south of the chakra, the red ray root chakra of the planet, which is up in Shasta, a mountain that is about 300 miles north of me. And they found her somewhere right around this area. And she predates the Native Americans that were here that spawned all of the Incans and the Mayans. And when they did a DNA on her, they found out that she did not, in fact, have any Asian DNA, which would suggest that she didn't breed with. So they said that she's out here in California, which would suggest she came across the land bridge from Asia. And usually when that happens, it's a slow migration. And so you have interbreeding, and that's what they call the Caucasian, which I hate in here in America because they say, are you Caucasian? No, I don't have any Asian in me whatsoever. I am 95% European. My DNA is 95% European. I have no African DNA and I have no Asian DNA. And the only 5% is native from Southern California and the Baja region. So in truth, it's probably Mexico. And that's where my people came from. And literally, I can trace that back to my grandmother. My great-grandmother was, in fact, Native American. My grandmother was half Native American and half European. Scandinavian, as a matter of fact. And so that gives me the 5%, because my father was 25%. And they say that because they discount the Spanish, if they leave the Spanish in, then I'm actually a quarter, not just 5%. But they say, well, that might be because I can trace my lineage back to Spain. So they're like, well, because that jumps to Spain, we'll discount that and we'll count that as European. So they count that as Scandinavian instead. But the truth is, here in the Americas, because the Spanish came and bred with the natives that were here and made the Mexican people and the people in South America, and most of them are bred with the Spanish. It's hard to differentiate. So if you leave that in, I'm 25% native. I'm a quarter native. But if you add that to the Scandinavian, it shoots me up to 95% European and 5% native, actual bloodline native, right? But that's like being Australian. There's two different Australian natives, Aborigines down there. If you're Rick, you know about that. And one is seen as original, and one is seen as, I think you guys kind of mixed with the Europeans or the Denisovans or maybe the Egyptians when they came in. And so there's always that, well, we're the upper aristocrat elders and you guys are the commonplace elders. So that's just one of those things that someone did for money and power back 1,000 years ago, right? So Choctaw, wow, that's in Cherokee, wow. Those are two prominent, Mel. Those are prominent bloodlines that are dwindling, but those are the two. They were the Anasazi and the Hopi and the Apache. They were huge. Those are still the biggest in the South, right? I don't know if you know anything about that, but upstate, like you're saying, with Washington State and Mount Rainier, Choctaw and Cherokee. Wow, they owned everything. You guys were all the way into Canada. You guys owned most of the the Cherokee Nation is more what this country was until the white people, the Europeans, started taking it over. The Cherokee Nation, they were all the north. North and northwest, along with the Choctaw, they had the whole United States locked up, and then the South was Hopi, Navajo, Anasazi or small, and then the like I said, the Apache. Apache was south. My people were Apache, south and southwest, and then as you went east and got to the Four Corners, that was Hopi. And then, of course, all of Arizona and New Mexico was a lot of people wanted to say it was Apache, but it wasn't. It was Navajo. So Navajo was most of the inner plains. God, I hadn't thought about this. I was just looking at it. You got me going on this, Mel. A lot of people tuning in are like, what are you guys talking about? Why is that important? And then, of course, the Scottish, I have Irish, Scottish, Welsh. I'm actually more Welsh than I am anything because I'm an O'Neill, and the O'Neill clan is actually a Welsh. We became the king of Ireland because we took it from married the queen or the princess and got into the throne that way. But we were Welsh. So and that's where, Henry V, in fact, he usurped the crown of England from the Edward the Black. And I'm an actual descendant of Edward. My middle name is Edward, and every man in my family has the same middle name, Edward. My brother and I used to have to show our IDs because we would tell people that. They go, "You do not have the same middle name." Yes, we do. It's Edward because it harkens back to Edward, the Black Prince of Wales, by the way, who was the Welsh king. And during the time when Henry V, his father died, and his uncle turned against him in France and decided to take over the kingdom, and he went to war with them. They said they couldn't find, because Cromwell was hunting all the O'Neills. They couldn't find anybody to represent the clan of Edward. So Henry V, being the grandson or great grandson of his sister, he took over the throne, and then the Medici took over after that, and that's the people that are in charge now. Or the descendants from that. I know that sounds crazy, right? But so there's your Scottish and your European, but my family goes back to that as well, with the Spanish and all of that. And then my DNA, I'm typo negative, the whole crazy 9 yards. Okay, so coming back around, right? I know, yeah. Mel says or he or she. I'm assuming that it's a female, and that's wrong of me to do. My ex-wife was Melissa, and her familiar name or whatever you want to call it was Mel, right? And so you're probably a guy, and I'm thinking that you're a woman. I apologize for that. So connected to many tribes, and that's what happens, because the larger tribes, and now we're given history of Native Americans. A lot of the larger tribes were states. People don't realize that they were states. So there were a bunch of smaller tribes. The English and the Scottish and the Irish, especially the Irish and the Scottish, and the Celts were the same way, where you would have a bunch of smaller tribes that would fight for a larger tribe. And that's why I made it a point to say, the Cherokee Nation, because the Cherokee Nation was made up of hundreds of smaller tribes that are under the banner of the Cherokee Nation. So people don't know that. So it's Mel. I salute you for knowing the history of our own people, and knowing that you're actually part of many tribes because of those two nations that you're a part of. Because you acknowledge the fact that here in California they've chopped that up. If you look in California, you don't have like the Apache Nation touching on the Choctaw in the north. You literally have like 100 smaller. Broken up from the big nations and claiming their own sovereignty. And that's what happened with a lot of them. And so if you go onto the Navajo land, they're not all Navajo. Navajo's a nation. So, but they say they're still trying to be united. So some of them have tried to stay united, like the Apache, the Anasazi, the Navajo, and Choctaw. But then internally, if you talk to natives, you'll find out that they're like, no, our people. They have your own personal name for your own personal tribe, which could be 100 people, 50 people, 30 people, sometimes 500 people. But they don't really report that to the world. So thank you, Mel. I didn't ask because this is in public. I didn't ask your tribe's name because that's personal. Your personal tribe, just like I didn't give mine. I went with the Apache Nation because we were on Apache Nation land. It still is. Most of the South here in the United States, California, Arizona, and Nevada into the Four Corners is Apache land. Still is. Even in Mexico. Northern Mexico is still reservations of the Apache. But that's the Apache Nation, right? I used to live by Apache Junction. I lived 30 minutes south of Apache Junction, which was a huge trading area and ways from the north and south along the trade routes in the United States when all of the people were coming from the east out to the west. Okay. Right. And then, Cassie, I didn't punch in Cassie. I was waiting to see if you were going to do that. But Cassie talking about the tribes in Montana where she grew up. And her and I have talked about this off air. So I know that she knows about all the different tribes there, too, under the one nation and smaller individual tribes. But the natives don't really talk about that very much in public. So Mel, I think that's kind of cool that you were willing to do that because we don't. I'm only 5% according to I'm literally supposed to. I'm literally if you do it. My father was a quarter, so I'm actually half of that. So I would be an eighth. That's not 5%. That's more. That's more like what is that? 7.5, almost 8%, right? And that's if you discount everything that's not just native. So if you put all that back in, it's higher than that. However, again, there's a lot of stuff like the Celts. They never taught anybody their language and their religion until they wrote it down. And now if you look up the Viking religion, they're like, well, this was invented around 1200. And it was based on, and they try to give credit from the Christian religion. The truth is that those religions, the Celtic way and the Viking way, are thousands of years older than the Hebrew religion and the Christian religion. Thousands of years older, but the people that were practicing that did not write it down for record, and they didn't teach people their language. The Vikings were renowned. People don't know this, but all of the Vikings, which if you look up the Celts and the Vikings, they actually owned 60% of this planet. If you go to my Facebook page, I have in my photos, I have a photo album that is all Vikings and one that is all the Celts. And if you look at the map that they actually of the territory that they owned, you're going to find that all that is Russia and everything in the north on the west of Europe and the northern Europe, all the way over to Mongolia was owned by the Vikings. And then if you follow the Celts south, they owned everything except for Greece. And they owned most of Italy, what is today Italy, and they owned everything that was Turkey, everything into the Middle East, further than people realize, almost to India. So that, and then in all of the Mediterranean, except for what the Greeks had, because the Greeks didn't break out until Xerxes pissed them off. Okay, and that's when they broke out and conquered that stuff. Xerxes took it all from the Celts and the Vikings, and before that it was Genghis Khan who had pushed west and pushed them back. But the Dalmatian Knights were mostly Viking people from the steppes, what they called the steppes of Russia, because the Rus was a clan of Vikings. That's where you get the word Rusian or Hessian. The Hess was a Viking clan. So these were small clans that were part of this larger group that people don't know about. And they think that they just look at the modern map and, the Vikings were in this little teeny country, Norway, Finland, and Sweden. That was it. No, man, they owned half of the known Europe. They owned 3/4, everything that is Europe, and half of Asia was owned by those people for thousands of years. And the Celts are Southern Vikings, and they owned everything in the South. So everything going to the Middle East and north of China before the Chinese broke out with the Mongolians And you can see the trade routes, and you see people fossilized and mummified over in China and Tibet and in the Mongolia that are Celts, that are literally red-haired, tattooed, kilt-wearing Celts. They were the ones who made all the trade routes that continued for 5,000 years. Okay, so the same thing happened in America. And when they found this woman and did her DNA, they found out that she was actually European. So the actual natives that are older than the ones who bred with Cortez and his men are actually from Europe, but did not come from the West, or going east from the West. They came the other way around. Okay, and made it all the way out to California. So they went across the other way from the Atlantic and not the Pacific. And they realized that now. So they had to rewrite the history books. You can look this up. I saw the study when it popped up in 2012 or 2015. I was like, yeah, I think I saw it in 2015. And they were saying in 2012, they discovered this. And I read this article and then went down that rabbit hole. And around that same time was when they started talking about out of Africa. And my friends Stephen and Evan Strong started talking about out of Australia, saying, look, we don't have any DNA that is African. And right around that time in 2015 or 2016, or it was 2017 or 18, I had met them and was working with them. I tested my DNA and said, I don't have any African DNA either. So they literally got the scientists looking at it, and they said that the majority of the people in Asia and Europe don't have African DNA, which means that their DNA is traced back to, and that's when they came up with the theory, and I talk to them daily almost about it. They came up with the theory that 75,000 years ago, there was this destruction of the earth that almost killed the entire population, and that the people who lived were South Africa and Madagascar, because they're high enough to not be affected, Australia, and then the Vikings up in the north. And literally the entire planet is populated now, 75,000 years later, from those three races. And that's how there's so many people in Europe that don't have any African DNA. So the theory that Africa spawned the entire planet was proven to be wrong. So they furthered that study, and this is my point here. They furthered that study and said, well, then what are these people? Are they actually from Australia in all of Europe and Asia and the Middle East? So they went around and started testing DNA and finding, bodies that are buried and things that they could exhume and all the mummies, and they started testing DNA. And that's when they found out that the Vikings actually owned most of the world prior to any of the modern day knowledge of who owned the world. So it wasn't until history, so prehistory, which we don't have any more history of because all those scrolls and books were destroyed, coincidentally, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, know what I mean? Hey, say no more, was taken out of service from the knowledge of the human race. But genetically, DNA is still there, and science in 2016 through 2020 proved that, in fact, the Vikings owned almost the entire northern hemisphere of the planet and did so for thousands of years. And then in the last 5,000 years was when their territory started to wane to where it is today. Okay. So they literally were here in the Americas prior to any history that we have currently. And that was proven by DNA. And they were also in Mongolia, all the way over into China. And it wasn't like they were just trading there. They lived there and owned it. It was theirs. And so literally those, but then, stuff changes. And that's what happened. There's an ebb and flow. What happened was the Ice Age. The Ice Age drove them out of the snow to pockets of place, and some of them, they lived in the snow because they figured there was no other place unless they went completely south, and they learned how to adapt. But then when everything thawed out, then everything changed, and you had less and less people in those areas. That's why everybody left America, because it was frozen over. This has all been proven. So why is this important? What does this have to do with what we're talking about? Okay. All of this is important because all of this history has been taken away. Kari, hi, by the way. I didn't say hi when you popped in. Denise, did I say hi to you earlier? I don't remember if I did. So hi again if I didn't. So all of this knowledge has been taken away. And then they lied to everybody and said, we've only been here for 3,000 years. That was when we were created. We have these creation stories. So all of this is bogus. All of this knowledge is what I've written about in my book that predates these knowledges, but you don't get to know it until you do. So if you're not awake at all, and you're somewhere between 11 and 17 years of age, usually somewhere between 11 and 14 to 15 years of age, in your psychology or in your makeup, your maturity level, which is proven based on the test that is the IQ test, the intelligent quotient test is actually proves that. And I kept saying that no one was over the age of 18 until I looked it up again, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong. They say no one's over the age of 15. So the general population has been kept somewhere between 11 and 15 years of age mentally, and it's only when you begin your ascension that you then start gaining and unlocking this knowledge within yourself, and you become smarter by doing so, and you learn knowledge by doing so, and your IQ goes up. IQ is something that is learned. It is not something that you're born with. Some people are born very smart and awake, but it's not the only way you're going to get it. But they want you to believe that. And the reason I tell you all of this is because of what Ra is talking about here. There are signs that if they tell you are wrong, which is what they do collectively, right? Those are demons. That's the devil. There's every Christian church on earth, most of the churches on earth. They don't want you to believe in anything, that it's got to be schizophrenia. You're hearing voices. It's all the devil. They would rather say that, some of them say there is UFOs, but it's the devil and demons trying to scare you and get and possess you. So all of that is fear-based to keep you from expanding your consciousness. Well, sometimes there's things that happen to you that manifest in sight, smell, taste, hearing, feelings, and they have to try and explain it away. And that's what they do. They're like, oh, ghosts, apparitions, evil spirits coming to get you. Don't believe in any of that. Don't listen to it. Don't even talk to it. Run away, run away. Come call me. Call the priest, because I'll come and help you. And then they go in and wave their hand, be gone, evil spirits, be gone. And the truth is, the whole time they're just convincing you to not pay attention to those things. Don't pay attention to them. If you pay attention to them, then they're going to wreak havoc on your house. So ignore that. And these are the things that are trying to unlock within you, that are manifesting within yourself. And Ra talks about that, how it manifests within yourself to give you the possibility of expansion. And people go, well, that's just an illusion. Well, everything is an illusion. The truth is, this is the dream. You're dreaming here. This is a dream. Okay. That is the truth. You're asleep here because you're veiled. Right. So that's just the way that is. Right. So, and you guys are having your own conversation. What are we talking about? So what is that? So Cassie, he's asking, so Cassie, is it legal or not? It depends on, I don't know what she's talking about. She said to him, I'm not sure. So, well, in truth, right. Mel says, I consider myself an embryo, continue to learn. Oh, you have to at all times. When people say to me, oh, you're so awake, I'm like, no, it just depends on who you're weighing me against. If you're putting me against somebody who has been here for the first 3 lifetimes, you're absolutely right. I seem to be godlike awake. But by that same token, if you look above me, you're going to be seeing me as a child like. So it's better and more humble to consider yourself, Mel, a embryo, continuing to learn. Because the second you stop, now you're ego. So if I were to believe I am the ultimate master of the universe, then that's ego. It's obvious that it's ego, right? Yeah, see now, well, Cassie's going on and explaining, but I don't know what they're talking about. So, but I agree. The government always will find some loophole to try and detain or arrest you for everything. And that's what they try to do. At first they demonize it, then they try to arrest you no matter what it is. And then eventually when too many people speak out, then they have to change their ways because too many people start saying, I refuse, right? Yeah, see, okay, so you guys have allowed your government, because Rick is saying that they are right now in Australia with voice referendum, which means they have decided that certain words and thoughts are illegal, and they're trying to tell you, and they're putting it in the government to create laws so that you can't say or think a certain thing. So if you allow them to do that, they will continue until they have you submissive and they'll make it illegal. Look at what they've done, and this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to go back to the feudal, what we call feudal Japan. They're trying to go back to the feudal ways of Sharia law, which is what they are opposing on people in the East. Literally, Gamal Khashoggi, if I'm saying his name right, he was killed and disemboweled and then chopped into several pieces and paraded in front of people that we didn't get to see in the media, and dignitaries from their kingdom, the Saudi kingdom, buried his body parts in their front yards with signs to prove that they had done that, all because he questioned and said that the king and the prince were evil. Okay. So literally what you have happening around the world, Rick, and Australia is trying to push this, and so is the UK. America tried it, and it's not happening here, but Canada has done it, and all the other people are trying to do it with these progressives. They're trying to go back to the feudal ideology of the Anunnaki, which is what everybody calls them, with these conquering gods who got here and built societies with kingdoms. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it illegal for you to stand against them in any way, even thought. And eventually, this is what the whole movie was about in the UK with Christian Bale, that was called Equilibrium. They had psychics who were priests who could hear your thoughts, and they would literally point you out and have you arrested and mind wiped so that you would not go against the government. Okay, and these were a lot of the movies that came out in the 90s and into the 2000s and up in through the 2000s to 2010, 12 were about that. All of the movies, what were they called? I can't think what they're called, with Jennifer Lawrence, where she was in that. I can't think of the name of that. That was the same about they had shut down society to where they had groups, worker bees and upper crust bees and accountants, and you did those jobs only. And she broke out from that, and then they were fighting a civil war against the government. And the same thing happened in Equilibrium. They took away everything and made you dress in gray, everything, and you had no photos or pictures or music or books. All of that was illegal. This is the beginning of what they're doing. They're stifling your words. Then they're censoring all the books and with the written stuff, and they're going to burn all the books to get rid of them. But they don't do it in the public square like they did in the 1200s when they tried to reset the world. Then they called it the Renaissance. And they reset the world then by doing the same thing. This is their new Renaissance. They have to put the world back to sleep. So they literally can't murder everybody, because that's what they've been trying to do for the past 60 years. And they've been stopped. So now what they're doing is they're eradicating history. And they've done that successfully. And now they're eradicating all free thinking. So they're going after all the books, all of your words, changing the meaning of your words. And when they get that done, they will then take the books out of the libraries, ban libraries altogether, ban religions altogether, ban anything that is not thinking the way they want you to, make it illegal to speak or think in a certain way, put you in jail, kill you. And what happens is it takes that away from society. Society becomes afraid to think it, afraid to do it. It has to go underground. And in doing so, it diminishes the amount of free thinking and free people down to about 3% that they can hunt down and murder all the time. And every generation, in 2 generations, you won't even remember that happened. That is what they're doing now because of how many people are awake. They're attempting that. So if you guys allow them to do that, the next thing you know is, they were already arresting people for taking off their mask to take a bite of I saw a video during COVID. They took off their mask to take a bite of a burrito in public where there was nobody within 100 feet of them. And the police came in and arrested this guy for doing so. That is the totalitarian stormtrooper ideology that has to be fought against at all costs. But not with an open rebellion or a war, a civil war, because that's what they want. They want everybody to do that so they can kill you all and then impose laws. So you have to do it peacefully without any kind of physical brutality or burning things. And because their people will do that and get away with it. But the second you do it in a rebellion, it's against their ways. They will unleash hell on you and arrest everybody and put you all in jail. And that is what they're trying to do. That's why those of us on this side are teaching you that the way of doing that is literally the way of doing that is what Mahatma Gandhi was teaching. Okay. Right. I love that, Cassie said, we are not going to allow that to happen. No, we're not. That's my point. They're attempting this, but they're losing everywhere. Okay. So literally, that is, every time you see that in your country, you need to stand in some way that is not violent. That, vote them out, get your vote back and vote them out. Talk to everybody, inform everybody, do what you can, get involved in your local governments, whatever you can do, fight back. Because if you don't, they're counting on that if they push you a little bit, you won't fight back, and then you'll get scared. And then when you get scared, they go further. And then they make you pay for it by destroying you. Look what they're doing in Canada. Until those people up in Canada stand up for themselves, it's going to continue. And they're literally locking down. And you guys in Australia are doing the same thing. And when did all that start? I hate to say this because you guys down there get really angry at us Americans, but it was when you gave up your guns. And if you're honest, you'll know that was when it started. The second you guys no longer were a threat physically to the federal government en masse is when they come after you. And that's what they've done everywhere in the world. You look at any country who gave up their weapons, a generation or two later is when all of this starts. That's part of the Marxist. Look it up. Read the Marxist way of conquering. It's in the fucking manifest, bro. The way to conquer a nation is written down, and you can check it off in your country and see what's been done already. Okay, that's not a joke. It's real. You can look that up. I'm not making that up. It's part of my book. I literally show you how the Hegelian dialectic was perverted into the Marxist mandate. Okay, so the Hegelian dialectic, when Hegel came up with that dialectic, which was a perversion of a further back Greek ideology, all of that's broken down in my book. I need to get it published, but I don't have the money to publish it right now. And no publisher is going to just want to pay me to publish that book. Once they read it, they're going to go, I can't fucking publish this. If I publish this, the federal government of the United States will try and ruin my publishing company because of what you're trying to put out there. So the things have to change, and I have to find the person that is within these publishing companies that are not afraid to have this happen to them, to take on these people that are going to try and cancel the cancel culture. But what's happening right now is that the cancel culture in the United States is starting to be canceled. They're canceling each other now and themselves, which is beautiful, but they're getting so crazy, insane, that people are going, are you fucking kidding me? Pardon my American, but people are actually starting to say that now. They're going, are you kidding me? Is this what they've gotten to now? Because now they're saying that working out, exercising is racist. Okay. I don't know if they're saying that in your country, but in America, they're actually saying that exercising in a gym is now a white nationalist racist thing to do, and always has been. It's systemically racist for white people to go to a gym and exercise, or to exercise. Okay, this is not a joke. They've gotten so crazy now. They're just like, everything is racist. I love that they're doing that, but I feel bad because true racism is now going to be a joke because they're saying that everything is racist. You have a remote control? That's racist. Right? You talk on a cell phone? That's racist. Right? Everything is racist. And it's perpetual, right? This is a systemic racism. It's been there forever. It's set up so that white people benefit from that. Like, really, that was not invented by white people, but okay, right? So, but that's my point. So now they're canceling themselves because they're calling everything racist. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich is racist. The godfather of peanuts and peanut butter, the man who invented peanut butter, was an African-American slave who invented peanut butter, by the way. Okay? He grew peanuts and he invented peanut butter. George Washington Carver. Okay? So these people so literally they're saying that peanut butter and jelly sandwich is racist because white nationalists conquering racists were the ones who came up with that. Okay, so now that means the refried beans are also racist. Because I always thought that was something because it's in part of Mexican food. If you're a part of this culture in the United States, and Mexicans will tell you, no, that was invented on the range by the military of the American government, cooking beans because beans were easier to cook for everybody. So everybody ate beans when you were a cowboy out in the West. Coming across the plains, you ate beans because you didn't have all the pasta ready like we do now with rice and all that. That wasn't available yet. So everybody ate beans. And so they would cook the beans in a pot and they would sit there in the pot for a few days. And as the beans do that, and you reheat them over and over, you lose the moisture. And if you don't have a lot of water, it becomes thick and the beans break open and it becomes this mush, which is refried beans. And they would cook those in a pan and fry them. So they were called refried because you fried them in a pan and then you would eat them like porridge. And so it became called refried beans. So I didn't know that until I talked to a Mexican from Mexico. And he was like, no, dude, that was invented by you guys in the United States. I'm like, what? And he gave me the whole history and I looked it up because we were sitting in an airport waiting for the train. So we were sitting in a train depot, but it was attached to the airport. We were waiting for a train because I was down south in San Diego and I was heading up here to take care of my mom and to see how she was doing, which I ended up moving up here. I was living on my yacht down there and I was in either LA or Albuquerque. I don't remember which because it was planes, trains, and automobiles happened to me. I'm not going to talk about that right now. But we were sitting in the waiting, literally, and he was on his way to court. He had to go to court the next morning, and so he was taking the train north to Bakersfield or Barstow or somewhere where he had to go to court. And he was from LA, and we were in LA because I started in San Diego, which is south, right across the border. And coming north, we were sitting in LA waiting for the train to go over the what we call the grapevine, the mountains that are separating north, the Central Valley of the California from the Southern Valley of California. So we're waiting for the train. And we're talking, and we were talking about how things were invented, and him being from Mexico, and me, being from here, and all that. And he's the one who taught me that. And I was like, he can't be right. So I grabbed my phone, looked it up, found out, wow, okay. So now refried beans are going to have to be racist because they were invented by white people, for white people across the plains, right? So everything is racist. It's so insane. But all of this is being done. We'll go back around now that I've gone a whole hour here. They go back around. So all of this is being done to eradicate every bit of knowledge that's there for you to access and then make you doubt anything that you access. So what happens is that this manifests from the other side in ways that are to expand our consciousness by giving us things like smelling of, was that incense? Why am I smelling that certain smell of incense? Is that grandma's perfume? Does that smell like a cigar? My grandfather used to smoke that very cigar. Why is that? Well, that's because it unlocks in you, first of all, the abilities that you have to talk to the other side, but that expands your consciousness to the possibility of something beyond this realm. And those things tug at you when there's nothing in the physical for you to learn and no one teaching it to you. So you have that stuff, Blazing Saddles. Oh my God, right, Rick? That was a great movie and a perfect example. I'll talk about that for half a second because in that, they were sitting at a depot to hire some guys to go, a posse, to go chase after the bad guys. And they had all these people lined up. And of course, it was a comedy. So you had stormtroopers in there and you had all this craziness and people from every genre of the world dressed up in there from every time zone, waiting in line, Roman legionnaires. It was hilarious. And then one of the guys that was sitting there, Slim Pickens, as a matter of fact, in his cowboy hat, he says, "We'll take the niggers and the Jews and the wops, but no Irish need apply." Now, and then everybody laughed, and that was made in the 60s. But the truth is that line, "no Irish need apply," was actually everywhere in the United States just after the potato famine, when the Irish were coming, all the immigrants were coming to America to try and make their way. And the government, of course, was keeping them as slaves for 5 years. And you see the movie that I talked about called Far and Away. If you watch that movie, you see that they come from Ireland, get off the boat. If you come here legally, you get off the boat, and the men were taken off the dock and turned to the left, and the women were turned to the right on the dock. And the men walked over and got on a military ship, and you had to swear allegiance and become the army of Republic. And for 5 years, you had indentured servitude as a slave, fighting against killing Native Americans for the federal government of the United States. If you lived, they would set you free and you would be a citizen. Your wife, children, whatever, went to the right and became slaves, working for the aristocrats, where they eventually were raped and ended up having the children while you were gone from these aristocrats who raped them, who made them their housemaids and the whole nines for 5 years. They also, at the end of that, would be dumped off. Gangs of New York was another one that showed that. You could watch those movies. That was with DiCaprio in the same scenario. And so then you had the immigrants fighting against immigrants that have already been here that are second and third generation. And what they were doing was, once you got out, you were a citizen, but now they were trying to starve them out. They didn't want them to be anything besides slaves and peasants. So they literally put up a sign, man needed for hire, no Irish need apply. Okay, and so that's real. You can look that up in history in the United States. So to try and get rid of and kill and dissuade the Irish in America, because there were so many of them that were coming here, to keep them down in the slave names, which is why all the African Americans, when they were freed in the 1860s, all the names that they were given were all Irish, Scottish, Norwegian names, Scandinavian names. Those were the names that the rich aristocrats called slave races. So that's why everybody's O'Neill, McNeil, McNabb, Henderson, Johnson, or they're all these Viking and Celtic names. And that's because the rich wanted them all to have those names so that they knew who they were. Literally, a guy in the New York Times yesterday, I believe it was now, published a thing. You can look this up, and it was entitled, it was an op-ed entitled, "Are We Really the Bad Guys Here?" And he literally says that the manifesto says we change the way things are said about who and what we call people. And the reason that we do that is so that we identify ourselves to each other by the way we speak. This is what they do and have done. The English language is currently set up. And so when people say the English language is racist, it is. But it's not actually racist, it's classist. Okay. So literally the English language is set up so that the aristocrats spoke a certain way and talked a certain way, and all the poor people would speak a different way. And they made the language so hard to spell the words that the poor people who didn't have the education wouldn't know how to do that. So the upper aristocrats could identify themselves by the way they spoke to each other. That's exactly what the cancel culture is doing today, right? You're not a homeless, you're unhoused. So if I use the word homeless, that it tells them that I am their enemy because I don't use the correct vernacular. If I say unhoused, then they say he's either somebody who is a convert, he's one of us, or he's one of them that is now under our understanding. He's now under our spell. He's conforming to our way of life. This is why they do that. All of that was done, right? Yeah, cracker. Yeah, that like the word cracker, right? But that's from a lower base. When you have this Ebonics, they do it on purpose to fight the system. So people make fun of them and go, listen, now they say, ask this and ask you a question. But the reason they speak like that is not because they're stupid or ignorant. It's because they are trying to show each other we're not conforming to the rich aristocrats' way of speaking. And that's why they're doing that on purpose. They're very educated. And when they need to talk in a certain way to get their point across to the rich and the elites, all of a sudden they become very, very eloquent with their oration. And then they turn around and go, cracker, ass cracker, when nobody's paying attention. Because they are they're the ones truly who know. The Latinos do the same thing. They speak a certain way when they talk to you because they need to. And the second that's why it's very important in America to learn to speak Spanish, because then you find out what they're saying about you right in front of your face. If you don't speak Spanish, I've been part of living in California. You can't but learn Spanish in this country anymore. So I'm now taking Spanish. I speak Spanish better than I speak even German or Irish or Swedish or Norwegian or any of the languages that come out of the countries that my DNA comes out of. Not a joke. Even French and Brazilian. Portuguese and Spanish. It's actually German is my second language. English, of course, being my first. So I would say Spanish is my second. German is my third. French is my fourth. And then it chops up between the Norwegian languages. But I am teaching myself 22 languages to learn this. But Spanish is the one I'm going after. When people are like, you should be learning Chinese. I am learning Chinese, but that's way down on my list. I don't think the Chinese are going to take over the world. But currently, there's at least 50 or 60 million probably more than that people, even though they'll tell you it's only 11 million, there's probably 50 or 60 million people in the United States who currently speak Spanish as their first language. Okay. But you don't get to know that in public. But if you listen, and they're blatantly doing that. Why is that important? They are fighting the system without the system knowing they're fighting it, by resisting. And they have that ideology. White people don't know that, and they don't realize it, and they don't fight. I hate to say that about white people, because when you piss them off, they're Vikings and they conquer the world. But if you keep them subdued, the people that everyone fears on this planet, if you can keep them subdued, then you can take over. So other white people are keeping the white people, the lions, subdued. And that's what this is all about. And this is what Raw is talking about, where you have this manifestation that happens to you, that if you don't have someone help you recognize these things within yourself, because your immortal soul and your higher self is trying to still assist you. Okay, so because they're trying to fight against the nature of nature, and with the nature of the beast. Do you see? So they're trying to make the beast nature and not nature. Okay. Right, Mel says, shit, I had a hard enough time learning English. I had to take speech for years. English is the hardest language to learn on this planet. That's not a joke. So if you're lucky like myself, where it was your native language, I still am learning how to spell. Learning foreign languages made me a better speller, because they don't teach you the language without teaching you to read and write it. And that's actually really hard, because I was never really good at English. So I've had to learn how to spell English better so that I could spell other languages better. And so I'm still learning as well. English is the hardest language to learn. So if you've learned English as your first language, all you have to realize then is that this language that we speak right here is backwards from most of 90% of the languages on the planet. We talk backwards. Everybody. So if you had a hard time learning English, it's easier to learn the dialect from other languages than it is for them in the reverse to try and learn English. Okay. It is. Well, see that Spanish and Italian is next to one another. So is Greece. So and see, I'm going to be a linguist too, and that's just what happens when you're if you're somebody who studies all the religions, you start learning all of the same thing with language. Is my point. Spanish, Portuguese is very much. If you listen to Portuguese, you can hear the Slavic from the north, but you can hear the Latin and Italian. Spanish and Italian are very similar because they come from Latin. So that's why it's called Latino. People don't know that. And so the Spanish are actually Latino. And that means that Latino means sub-Latin. So it means based on or next to. So literally, like the word Keltoi is the word that the Greeks used, which we now use as the word Celtic, right? Or Celt or Celtic is a modern word. That was a catch-all word that was just a derogatory term, like nigger is to Africans, which actually came from Latin, by the way, negro, which means black, and that's Latin. Actually, that's actually the Italian. So literally the word nagger comes from the word negro, and everyone said, no, it comes from the Niger River. No, it's just similar. Niger River is actually a derivative of black. Which was a Latin derivative of Old English that came from Old Latin. So Niger came from the same. Okay, so that meant black. Okay, so literally the word Keltoi meant to the Greeks those people who live up north who are not Greek. That's what that meant. And so we don't know what they called themselves because the Vikings never told you. The word Viking was a word that was used for what they did. Viking meant raiding and pillaging. Going a Viking meant raiding and pillaging. So literally what we have, the catch-all phrase that we use to blanket all of these people that would Scandinavian, which was also a blanket term, literally Viking meant raiding and pillaging. It didn't actually mean a race of people. They were actually called the sea people by most of the people in the Mediterranean, or the Norsemen, right? That meant the people who live up north, Norse, is an old French word, which is an old German word, which comes from a Turkish word that comes from the Middle East that means Northman. Okay, Norseman. Norse is now a modern word that's a Finnish word, which comes from the ancient world when the Vikings ruled everything, that meant what they were. They didn't call themselves, they still don't. In the Finnish language, they're called Norsk. Okay, that's where the word currently today means Finnish, Norsk, Nordic. Norsk means Nordic. And so Norseman, is just like the Norse language, and the Spanish word for German is Aliman, which means middle, not north. See, this is the stupid shit that I know that's in my brain from learning all these languages. So the origin of all of these terms are not what people think they are, is my point. And they're trying to eradicate all of that and have. And what's fighting against that, not only people like myself, but nature itself and your consciousness or subconscious or super consciousness fights against that without you knowing it. And if you're not aware or have anyone to teach you that, then you don't realize why you have this sensation that happens and what it means. So some of us who have shamanic training, that from the Celtic religion and the Native American shaman teachings, we start showing you and teaching you how to identify and what to identify. I remember my father going through this, was part of the 21 Lessons of Merlin, going through this and explaining to me tones in my ears and what that meant and when they happened and why, and how to identify thoughts in your head and how to communicate with other people and realize you were communicating with someone else, and then actually have a conversation with them that you could check later, literally teaching me how to literally remote view and speak to someone, and using the energies of the earth to do all of this. And I should write a book about that, but I could probably call it the 18 or 21 Lessons of Merlin. But I haven't. Why? Because some of this information was kept hidden for thousands of years. Well, most of this, they keep bugging me to write this stuff down. And when I say they, I'm talking about the other side. They keep bugging me saying it's time for all of this knowledge to come back, returning to the old ways. Cassie said, crap, my phone died. You missed all the important shit. That was right then. Right then, while you were gone, was the most important part of this show. Right, guys? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. No, there was actually some good information there, but I don't think it was the most important thing. That's hilarious. But I love to say that because you'd have to go back to find out, but you probably should go back and find out. Okay, so literally coming back around again, all of this has been taken away, and they're trying to change everything so that you will then submit to their will, because so many people are waking up. And in that process is that stuff, right? I know Cassie said, damn it, Leo. Right? Yeah, all the most important stuff was just then while you were gone, Cassie. Okay, so I'm going to continue with Raw because I don't even know how many people are still here. You guys all probably left while I was talking, because when I get talking too much, all the Puritans go, I didn't come here to listen to your dumbass. I want to hear from Raw. So we'll give you 40-year-old information that you have to figure out on your own. And that's, so if you want to do that, I tell people leave and go and listen to go to lawofone.info and read it for yourself for free. And you can press the little button and listen to Carla actually translate it. But just like I'm doing with the Corpus Hermeticum, which is what all of the Hermetic texts were based on, I'm listening to the source myself, untranslated, so that I can figure out what's being said there without having someone else's opinion. Now, I say that as I'm giving you my opinion of what Ra was talking about, but I'm not giving you truthfully my opinion. I'm trying to give you truthfully what I believe Ra was actually saying. And then I tell people, you don't have to believe me. You can go and figure it out for yourself. If you don't need an interpreter, listen to it and go away. Don't bitch about it. Just do it. And that's what I tell people. I'm not here trying to tell you I have all the answers to the universe. I'm here to try and tell you that neither did Ra. And Ra was saying that when Ra came through in the 1980s. That even they, at the time, didn't have the answers to the universe, but they could only give you the information that our entire planet was ready for at the time. That was 40 years ago. So there is more information that they were trying to tell you that was esoteric. I see it, and that's what I'm doing. And so when people think that I'm deviating and I'm just rambling on, if you actually listen to what Raw said and what Raw's about to say, it actually makes more sense, and I'm trying to help you. So I literally had somebody post, and I didn't erase it. I left it there because I posted my, in a reel, I posted my costs for me to teach. And the person actually said, if you teach people for money, you're not actually helping them. And I looked the person up. This person works at a restaurant. And I thought about it, but didn't respond with, so if I come to your restaurant, are you going to give me free food? No, because you need to make a living, right? So so you're not helping me if you're charging me for that food. See, so you should be giving me that food for free. But if he doesn't own the restaurant, he's going to go, I don't care. You could eat for free, because he doesn't own it. So it's not his loss. It's not hitting his pocketbook. So people say that all the time. But what I did answer him with was, everything should be free. I agree with that. But until we change our society and don't believe, because that's what they have you all convinced, that everything has a value and it all stems back to the almighty dollar, and that dollar is worth a certain amount, until they want to make money off of you. Then they quickly, when the dollar is worth shit, you have commercials every 5 seconds saying, buy gold and silver now, quickly. The American dollar is worth nothing. So literally what they're doing is, because when the dollar, whatever dollar it is that you have in your country, is based on currently the American dollar or the Chinese yen or the nowadays the ruble, and literally it's based on one of those currencies, and maybe the euro, if you live over there, it's based on one of those currencies. When that currency goes down, the price of gold goes up. So when that currency goes down and it's only worth a penny, they're trying to tell you to buy gold, which means gold is now worth $1,200 an ounce. So you pay $1,200 for an ounce. And then when that money value goes back up, the gold goes down to $800 an ounce. And guess what they're going to tell you? Oh my God, sell that stuff now, because you're losing money. And then you're going to sell it off at a loss. And guess what they're doing? They're buying it from you at that loss and waiting until it goes back up to 1,200. They're going to scare you. It's called the Hegelian dialectic. They're going to scare you and say, buy now. So they convince you to buy when it's high and sell when it's low. And who do you think they're buying and selling it? Who you think is buying it from you and selling it to you? They are. They're making money because they're convincing you to buy it at the wrong time and sell it at the wrong time. This is what they're doing with everything in your life if you're not paying attention. So certain things are trying to wake you up. Yourself and higher self is trying to help manifest that. Let's continue with Raw talking about it. For those people who are like, enough of you, pal. I want to hear Raw say it. Here we go.
Secondly, she would like to know why she feels more healthy now after she does these sessions. She's generally feeling more healthy as time goes on. Ra, I am Ra. This is a function of the free will of the entity. This entity has, for many of your years, prayed a certain set of sound vibration complexes before opening to communication. Before the trance state was achieved, this prayer remained within the conscious portion of the mind complex and, though helpful, was not as effective as the consequence of this prayer, as you would call this vibrational sound complex, which then goes directly into the unconscious level, thus more critically affecting the communication from the spiritual complex.
Right. So you guys are asking questions that I probably should answer. Mel said, have you noticed how strong your telepathy has become? There was a time here in the United States, or I should say in the world, but in the United States specifically, 25, 30 years ago now, when the kids that we were deemed as, the star seeds and the indigo kids were being born, all of them now are between 18 and 35. They were coming in, having telepathic abilities, able to actually speak to each other on the true internet of the world. So they had the evil people had to stifle them. So here in North America, they had everybody get inoculated. And when they were inoculating everybody, part of the inoculation was closing the third eye of all of the children before they were able to speak or know what the third eye was. And the problem with that was some kids that started making them autistic. So what happened was, because of everything they were doing, this happened to my brother with my nephew. One of my nephews, because what was happening was they were trying to stifle and close your third eye. That's why people here in the United States don't want any aluminum in their deodorant or any fluoride in their toothpaste, because that closes your third eye and solidifies it, not in a good way. And they had to to close these kids off, so they were inoculating them, what was causing people to become autistic. So it was 1 person in a million or in 8 million. 1 person in 8 million would be born autistic prior to the inoculations, and then it became 1 in 8 after the inoculations. And people started to realize that, and it was class action lawsuits that went after Big Pharma. And they settled, and my brother was part of that, and I don't know what he got from it. I know he got lifetime medical for his son, because they made him autistic, because the shots they were giving him, something in the shot made him have seizures, and that made him autistic. And that happened a lot all over the United States, but most of them had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. My brother can't talk to me about it, but he's not rich, so they didn't get a shit ton of money. But even if he did, he and his wife would have blown through it pretty quickly, because they spend money like it's water when they have it. So even if they did have it, they would have blown it, but I didn't see a bunch of stuff. But they did get medical for him for the rest of his life, and I think his education paid for because of it, and a bunch of other things for themselves, to be able to go to camps and all this stuff to learn what they needed to learn to deal with their son. And so did many other millions of people around the world that I'm aware of, because of that. So that was them. And what's happening now, Mel, is that people are waking up, and so that's becoming more prevalent. So some of us already had that, but didn't have anybody to communicate with. And now everybody is, because the truth is, we have moved from Baktun 12 to Baktun 13 in 2012. So the Baktun 12 was the masculine Kundalini energy, and we're moving into the Kunda Buffer energy, which is the feminine. That's the age of Aquarius. And so we, as a human species, are evolving away from the lizard brain warlike mentality, and that's unlocking in everyone these abilities that these people are still fighting against, because they don't see that, they don't want to know it, because it doesn't have anything to do with their religion, because of them being locked into the number of the beast, which is the human condition that they're locked into, which is 6, and they're stuck there. 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Do you see? So, yes. So what's happening is, those of you and those of us who are waking up, it's getting stronger because we're unlocking it, and more people, exponentially is the word that we use, are also having the same thing happen to them. So more and more people are becoming, and what's happening is that when people look at me, if they're still veiled, they'll go, "You're crazy and you're making that shit up." And that's what people will say about me that are there. And they go, "Well, you can't prove it. He can't prove any of that. It's all just conjecture. It's all hypothetical. He's just making the whole thing up. And I can prove it, because he can't prove it any other way." But those people who are waking up are learning that knowledge themselves, because it's universal. It's not something that I own. It's universal. And what happens is, when you know it, you know it. So when people wake up, they look around at these other people and they go, "You can't tell them." At first, you try to tell them, wake up, you're asleep and you don't even know it. You need to wake up." And they look at you like you're crazy. And eventually you wake up enough to realize they can't. And they think you're nuts. So you have to learn to distance yourself and allow that to happen, to distance yourself away from them. And then what happens is, you start gravitating towards finding more like-minded people, kindred spirits, if you will. And you will look for those people online or wherever, and you'll find them. And then you gravitate away from those other people that are more Neanderthal-like. That's just nature. It's the way it works. So you move away from that naturally, and you ignore those people, and those people are becoming less and less and less, is my point. Okay. So, and then Penny says, I talk to other people all the time with telepathy, but I'm not sure if anybody hears you. The other person has to be aware of the abilities as well. And you can test that. And then you've seen studies. There are studies that the government has done for decades with remote viewing, and having people that are paying attention to and looking and trying to seek out someone else in another room and not even know that they're there. And then have somebody looking at, cards and be looking at a star and then a square and then a circle. And the other person would pick up a star and then a square and then a circle, not knowing why they did it, but they were trying to channel that information. And they've tested that, and they found that it's actually real. They just don't publish that for you to know about. Okay. They just don't publish that for you to know about. So, okay, let's continue with what Ra was talking about.
Also, this entity has begun due to this working, to accept certain limitations which it placed upon itself in order to set the stage for services such as it now performs. This also is an aid to realigning the distortions of the physical complex with regard to pain. 22.3 Questioner, thank you. I'll ask a couple of questions to clear up the end of the second cycle, the second major cycle. And then we'll go on to the third and last of the major cycles. Can you tell me the lifespan, the average lifespan, at the end of the second major cycle? Ra, I am Ra. By the end of the second major cycle, the lifespan was as you know it, with certain variations among geographically isolated peoples more in harmony with intelligent energy and less bellicose. 22.4 Questioner, can you tell me the length of that SP average span in years at the second major cycle? Ra, I am Ra. The average is perhaps misleading. To be precise, many spent approximately 35 to 40 of your years in one incarnation, with the possibility not considered abnormal of a lifespan approaching 100 of your years. 22.5 Questioner, then can you give me can I assume then that this drastic drop from 700-year lifespan to one less than 100 years in length during this second 25,000-year period was because of an intensification of a condition of lack of service to others? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is in part correct. By the end of the second cycle, the law of responsibility had begun to be effectuated by the increasing ability of entities to grasp those lessons which there are to be learned in this density. Thus, entities had discovered many ways to indicate a bellicose nature, not only as tribes or what you call nations, but in personal relationships, each with the other, the concept of barter having given way in many cases to the concept of money.
All right, so you see literally everything that I did for that hour leading up to this, right, again, was not rambling. He literally was just now talking about we're just now talking about tribes, nations, individuals, money, and everything that I had talked about. So I wanted to stop there and show that, right, to show those people who left during that time going, and he's wandering off. He's just talking about just random crap politics shit from now. He's not talking about Raw at all and the law of one. I'm out of here, man. For those people, they didn't stay long enough to just hear what was just said. And literally Raw is tying that back because of her asking the question that Dawn is asking on her behalf and getting the answer now from Raw about why is it that she's feeling a certain way and how does that manifest and what does that mean? Literally Raw, and that's why I explained everything that I did. That was the most important stuff that you missed there, Cassie, while your phone died. Kidding again, but it was literally leading up to getting you to understand this point that Raw is making about our connection, and on a smaller scale, and then on a medium-sized scale, like personal, tribal, nation, world, and he's bringing it back down. And this is literally from the Hermetica about, if you read Corpus Hermeticum, which is the original thing from Hermes, it's the conversation that Hermes Trismegistus had with God. Literally, God's talking about that in the first 3 chapters. Matter of fact, yeah, because I just listened to the first 3 chapters, or I'm on chapter 3. So in the first 2 chapters, literally, and I thought that was weird that I decided to listen to the Corpus Hermetica or Hermeticus. And literally that we're talking about what Ra is talking about in session 22. And then the number 22 has some weird also, but I'm not going to get involved in that right now. And I was listening to that today going, what? This is so ironic. And how people will say that, how, dude, you're talking about Ra and all this stuff. And it literally has to do with what's happening in my life right now. I'm like, yeah, that kind of stuff happens. That's the synchronicity that is happening. Oh, and just so you know, I haven't hammered out the exact time yet, but Jacqueline Taylor and myself are going to go live. Or actually, I think we're going to film it and then play it afterwards instead of being live. So I don't know when it's going to, but I think Monday, and I don't know if we're going to go live or if we're going to film it and then go live, because we talked about both. But her and I are going to talk about the power of squares, and I'm going to take it from the science to the nature to literally to spirituality. So we're going to be talking about all of that up and coming. So Monday, this coming Monday, which is a holiday in some countries, In Canada, it is, but here in the United States, it's not. But it's a civic holiday in Canada, I believe, and some places else in the world. I think maybe in the UK, because the Canadians are based on a lot of stuff that happens in the UK. Either way, we're going to either be live, but I don't know. I'll find out from her today or tomorrow, or it's going to be filmed, but it's going to come to be on the air either Monday or another day that we're going to be talking about that, and it's going to be really exciting. So I will let you guys know and put it in the chats and share it out because it'll probably be on Zoom again. So we'll be sharing that out one way or the other, and I'll make sure you guys get to hear that because that's going to be some really way high. That's going to start out mathematical, unless she doesn't start it out that way, but then it's going to get into the spiritual, talking about that, which is going to be the nature of nature and the masculine and feminine energies. And the square is all the squares of the masculine, and then all the spiral is the feminine, and how that coincides together and how that works out in the universe and manifests in the universe. And then that will also allow you to realize what we're talking about here and how that also ties in. That's why I bring it up right now as a commercial, because what you're learning about right now and what I've been saying to you for the last hour and 45 minutes it pertains to what Ra is talking about, and everything that Ra is talking about and I'm talking about it pertains to this information of ascension, which is what we're going to ring out from a different angle that we haven't done yet. And we've been talking about it, threatening to do it, and we decided to do it. And this is going to be crazy high vibration, 5 and 6D vibration. Now I don't know why, but I'm wheezing. Pardon me. So let me continue here with what Ra's talking about.
Also, the concept of ownership having one ascendancy over the concept of non-ownership on an individual or group basis. Each entity then was offered many more subtle ways of demonstrating either service towards others or service to self with the distortion of the manipulation of others. As each lesson was understood, those lessons of sharing, of giving, of receiving in free gratitude, each lesson could be rejected in practice.
Yeah, thank you, Cassie. I was just going to suggest that. Mel, we have a chat group, Law of One class chat group. If you get added to that, it's on Messenger. If you get added to that, we'll link it in Messenger, and then you can hit the link from there. And if her and I do go live, and if not, and it's still just a link, you can click on that and it'll take you to wherever she posts that. So if you want, Cassie can add you to that chat group. And then a lot of conversation goes on outside of this class show during the week. For the rest of the week, there's a lot of other knowledge that we talk about in there. And if you have any other questions that don't get answered on the live, you can literally type it in there, and someone, either myself, Cassie, or Peter GV, or Peter Coyle, at the very least, but many other people that are in there that are very awake, will have conversations. We do all the time. There's a couple of groups that we have conversations in. That's one of them. The other one is returning to the old ways. We have separate conversations, and sometimes they bleed over between the two. All right, let me continue. So if you guys are going to do that, please do that, Cassie. And thank you, Cassie, for that.
Without demonstrating the fruits of such learn/teaching, the lifespan became greatly reduced, for the ways of honor/duty were not being accepted. 22.6 Questioner: would this shortened lifespan help the entity in any way, in that he would have more at times in between incarnations to review his mistakes, or would this shortened lifespan hinder him? Ra: I am Ra. Both are correct. The shortening of the lifespan is a distortion of the law of one, which suggests that an entity not receive more experience in more intensity than it may bear. This is only in effect upon an individual level and does not hold sway over planetary or social complexes. Thus the shortened lifespan is due to the necessity for removing an entity from the intensity of experience which ensues when wisdom and love are, having been rejected, reflected back into the consciousness of the Creator without being accepted as part of the self. This then causing the entity to have the need for healing and for much evaluation of the incarnation. The incorrectness lies in the truth that, given appropriate circumstances, a much longer incarnation in your space/time continuum is very helpful for continuing this intensive work until conclusions have been reached through the catalytic process. 22.7 Questioner: you spoke of the South American group that was harvestable at the end of the second cycle. How long was their average lifespan at the end of the second cycle? Ra: I am Ra. This isolated group had achieved lifespans stretching upwards towards the 900-year lifespan appropriate to this density. 22.8 Questioner. Then I'm assuming the planetary action that we're experiencing now, which shortens, it seems, all lifespans here, was not strong enough at that time to affect them and shorten their lifespan regardless. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. It is well to remember that at that nexus in space/time great isolation was possible. 22.9 Questioner.
See, so because of our affinity for bellicose, because of the pendulum swinging away from the light, because of the negative energy or people in service to self controlling this earth for as long as they did, that is what shortened our lifespan, our affinity for violence. Bellicose means violent, not just on a physical, but on a psychological, in spiritual violence, sexual violence and aggression. All of that leads to the dark side, right? Fear, anger, aggression leads to the dark side. All of that swung the pendulum, and that is why the earth is actually crooked off its axis right now. And people would say in science, that's not how that happened. It happened from another reason, but they are not looking at the bigger picture, the bigger picture. They're not seeing the esoteric spirituality of it because they can't. And you have to realize that people who are locked into that can't. Now, going to the Christian in the Hebrew Bible, and including the Muslim Bible, which all of that was based on the Moses doctrine, right? That was given to Moses supposedly by the Godhead. Literally, in those doctrines, it says the devil shall rule the earth for a time. Okay, now, and I say that to people and it blows past them, and I give the explanation, it still blows past them as you don't know what you're talking about. But those words, the devil will rule the earth for a time, that suggests there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a definite timeline. It's not infinite. It's not infinity. It doesn't say the devil will rule the earth for infinity, forever. Forever and ever, amen. Those words are not used. The word is for a time. A time means a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you look at the earth, and when the earth was changed because of the earth being brought into the modern day by bringing civilization to the tribes, which that civilization was what the Anunnaki brought you in that little suitcase, and then them controlling your pineal gland. That's what they have. We can control your third eye and your mental stability. That's what they're doing with their left hand. The right hand has that little handbag in it, and they have scrolls in their waist. That is how to control a population and build empires that are ruled by a king, a god king. And that is what they brought to the world. And literally, Ra just said, that literally people went from living from 900 to 1,000 years long to living to 35 years long on average for the last 12,000 years. Prior to that, people lived for 1,000 years. It was easier to be more isolated then. And then they were bringing civilization to the world. And that happened exactly, this is in my book, that happened exactly when the Anunnaki showed up here. It's 12,000 years ago. 12,000 years ago, everything changed on the earth. 4,000 years ago, they eradicated all of the memory of anything that happened prior to that. All of what we call prehistory is what happened before 3,500 years ago. And the only reason that we still have that information is because the Scottish and the Irish monks stole it all away and recopied it over and over again and brought the books back out for people to know about. So that's the only reason why they have that. We have any history, and our history only goes back 3,500 years. And everything else prior to that is little pockets of people who were isolated away from civilization, and they brought that knowledge with them into the modern world. And most of them have Aboriginal ties, original people who refused and went underground, sometimes literally and sometimes figuratively, and refused to give over that knowledge. And these are the elders that are Native Americans or native to North American continent, natives in Australia, natives in Africa, these people around the world, that they have a knowledge that predates the history, and all of that knowledge is being told by people who are teaching you history, that's all a lie and a myth. They call everything prior to a book mythology. It's a myth. That's not real. The Viking religion is a myth. And that gives you the connotation that it's not real, that it's fake, and that that's just children being afraid of the dark, and they're the ones who know that stuff, and there's nothing written. So let it be written, so let it be done became the mainstay. Ramses II said that to Moses. So literally, if it wasn't written down on a piece of paper, it didn't exist. And they got everybody to believe that. So then they burned all the pieces of paper. Not too long after that, they burned all the paper. And why did they do that? Because if it was not written down, it's not real. And then everything that was written, they burned everything that they didn't agree with, and they didn't want you to know. This is what has happened here. But that time is over now. So you have to realize that the time that the devil ruled the earth, the ego, the darkness, the veiling is over now. And people are waking up. Why? Because we're moving into a different era on this earth that is being ushered in. People like me have come here to assist with that because there were people that were here who were stifling it. Everyone on this planet was supposed to wake up thousands of years ago, and they put everybody into darkness. And that's where we say they fell. They fell into darkness. We fell. The human race stumbled and fell. The human race was hit over the back of the fucking head and knocked into darkness by other humans, not by some race of beings who came down here and invented this place and used their DNA and mixed it with the monkeys and made the human race. And then they're capturing your soul from other planets all over the universe and bringing you here in prison. That's the lie they want you to believe, so that you will not ascend, because you'll be afraid to. Don't do that. Because the second you try to get out there, there's machines out there that will capture your soul, and then they zap your soul, which takes away your memory, and then they stick you back into a body, and they have everything covered. Tell a little truth with many lies. Or when you do leave your body, they're going to tell you that you're here on a secret mission and that you're supposed to come back, and that you're not going to heaven, that you're actually going to go to where you came from. And they scare you with that ideology, because the reality is, there is no fucking heaven, man. That was invented here 2,500 years ago. You don't die with one life and then go and become an angel and have wings and go to this place that's perfect. Because if you believe that, the best thing you can do is to become a fucking statue, a pillar standing next to God's throne, where you can't move, can't think, can't breathe, can't shit, can't drink, can't get party, can't do anything, but you'll never die, you'll never be hungry, and you can't do anything except for just be in my presence. I'm that fucking cool. That's the best thing you can do. Look it up. Look it up in all of the Western Judeo-Christian doctrines. The best reward is to become a pillar in heaven. So when you go there, it's a Greek monument, and there's all these fucking pillars all around. Are their names at least carved on them so you know who the fuck they are? Or do you have to ask God? Oh, hey, that one's Jake. That one over there is Odysseus, and that one over there is Umfufu, and that one. Really? So can I talk to him and congratulate? Nope. You can go over and talk to them, but they don't talk back because they're not alive. They're not gods. Come on, man. Let's be serious. I made them a frickin'. So Medusa, with her snake head, turned people to stone. That's somehow different. You're in her presence. That's somehow evil. But when God does it, that's the best thing you can do. So it's not a hard stretch to teach people that if you go and murder and kill yourself, when you go to heaven, we're telling you you're going to get 88 little girls between the age of 10 and 16 to rape. 88 virgins to have sex with. I don't want to have sex with one virgin, because I have to teach her everything, and she's not good at it. It hurts if she is a virgin and you're doing that to her, you tear her hymen. She's not really comfortable, and so what? And then you're done with her, and then what? Well, now she's not a virgin. So after you screw all 88 chicks up in heaven, what do you got? You got a bunch of women now. They're women, just like all other women, except for now you have to teach them. So what are you going to teach them? Well, now you're my slave and we just have sex. That'll get boring pretty soon. Some of them aren't going to pay attention to that bullshit. They're going to start ordering you around and they're going to become women. So that means that you have to have your fucking skills set up to deal with them and actually have a fucking relationship, right? So they're not being taught that. So all of a sudden reality is going to set in heaven. And these women are going to become women. And the next thing you know, you're going to be fucking having 88 women who are all your wives kicking your ass because you're only one dude. And they don't teach you that. So you kill yourself so that you get all these chicks and then they're going to take over, bro. Because if that's the case, then how many dudes are there in heaven? Because for every one guy is 88 women. That means women rule heaven. So you better figure out women while you're down here before you fucking go murdering yourself thinking you're going to get 88 virgins, because what they don't tell you, they become virgins again every day so that you get a brand new virgin every day. That's not going to happen. So they're going to fucking turn into women. So you better figure out women now. Oh no, because Sharia law, my dumbass doesn't know how to deal with a woman because she needs to shut up and walk 5 feet behind me and cover her everything except for her fucking eyes so I don't have to lead her around when she's blind. So you don't even know. I know, Penny, right? Here I am taking shots, and some of these people, King fucking Fahd over there in Saudi Arabia is going to put a warrant out for my fucking execution. Fuck him too. I'm not afraid of him. Bring him. They'll give me a reason to murder some fools. I've said that many times. Okay, but here's my point. That is silly. And only a 6-year-old boy would believe that story. Do you see? But that's what they tell you. And then when the people that are a little bit more awake, you get told, well, you'll get rewarded in the afterlife. Be my slave. Do what I tell you to do. Oh, and by the way, because I'm a Roman Catholic priest, I'm going to have sex with you whether you're a boy or a girl. I'm going to screw you. And that's just part of being in the church. Come on, man. Until I get caught, then they just move me and hide me. But you're going to get rewarded on the afterlife. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, they tell each other. So that's the bullshit story. When you go to heaven, my friend, you will be rewarded for your slavery to me here. That is a lie. That's bullshit. Okay, but again, a 6-year-old little boy or girl is going to believe that story. That's why they get you when you're a child. And that's why they're trying to keep everyone in that state of mind. Because you're a simpleton. You are, in fact, and that's what the Jedi is trying to show you, that the simple-minded are easily swayed. I've talked about this many times, and I've proven this in real life, that it is that way, okay? So literally, you have to become aware. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. If no one is there to tell you there is a trap, you have no idea. That is why the eradication of history, the eradication of language, the currently attempted eradication of thought and of anything other than their way of thinking. I will punish you. I will execute you. Oh, you won't let us do that? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll erase you. I'll delete you. I'll censor you, and I won't let you talk in what we say is the town square. Do you see? That's just like with Twitter. That Twitter became the place where they spoke. And as soon as someone took that company over and said, now the other side gets to speak, another company said, then we need to make something that's just like that where we all can run to and have as our new place where none of them get to talk. So literally what they're doing is they're making you choose AI or not AI without you being aware of it. You're choosing to be in service to self, or you're choosing to be in service to others. You're not aware of it. So if you're like, I only listen to CNN. I only listen to MSNBC. I don't care what Fox has to say. They're a bunch of liars. Or if you're the other way around, I only watch Fox. I don't care what CNN or MSNBC or ABC or CBS says because they're a bunch of liars. The fact that you're choosing one of those is all they care about, because both of them are selling you the same message. They're just selling it to you from a different standpoint to make you think that what you're getting from them is something completely different. The Republicans are trying to tell you, and all these other people that are not these progressives, they're trying to tell you the only bastion of freedom is Fox and all the networks like them, because we're the only ones that are giving you the truth. And then you go to Fox, and they say, we have all the information on Hunter Biden to show you that the entire Biden family is been corrupt forever and getting paid all kinds of money. And for the last 2.5 years, they've attempted to sell it to you by saying, the only place you get to see this is you have to pay us for our Plus channel. When that didn't work after 2 years, now all of a sudden they're bringing it back out to on the regular Fox channel, and they're starting to unveil all the shit they already knew about 2 years ago. Why? Because they got the money out of as many of you fools out there who would pay them for that money because it was exclusive. And exclusive now, it's you're paying for the Fox channel itself, which is a cable channel. So you're paying for that exclusive right. Then you're paying for it to be a mandated, worldwide mandated high definition channel, but you're paying for high definition channels when you shouldn't be doing that because every single is in high definition. But now you got to pay for the Plus channel to get the good stuff. So they're so for the American people and the freedom of the world that they want to fucking charge you 2 years for that information. But when that didn't work, now they're talking about it in open court. Why? Because nobody wanted to pay them, and not enough people did, because they would still not be broadcasting this shit to you. They'd still be trying to promote it on their Plus channel. But it didn't work. But for 2 years, I'll bet there was millions of people around the world that paid for that Plus channel, and they couldn't get any more ratings on there, so they keep trying to put exclusive shit over there. That's what they do on all channels to get you to pay them extra money, right? This is a brand new television program, but the only place you can see it is you got to pay us Paramount Plus, ABC Plus, CBS Plus, Disney Plus, but you have to pay us extra money, $10 a month, to watch just this one channel, to watch just this one program. And the longer you do that, the more that works. Here's my proof that it doesn't when people stand against it. NASCAR, back in the 80s, because of pay-per-view was invented, back in the 80s, where you had to pay for boxing matches, or you had to pay to watch the wrestling matches. Enough people did that, it became popular. So they were charging you, at the time, $25, $30, which is now $75 or $80 for it. And everybody was like, oh, yeah, we'll do it. Oh, man, hell yeah. So NASCAR said, from now on, we're going pay-per-view. You have to pay us if you want to watch the races. That went on for a half a season, and all of the fans stopped showing up at the racetracks to watch the races, didn't pay for NASCAR at all, and stopped buying all the products around the nation of the United States. They stopped buying cars. They stopped buying the hats. They stopped buying the T-shirts. They said to NASCAR, fuck you, die, dinosaur. And NASCAR lost so much money, they said, hey, we were just kidding, man. We were only joking. It's okay. We'll put it back on television. And they ran from that as fast as they could, and they've never tried it again. They don't have a Plus channel for NASCAR because NASCAR fans actually fight back. And I would wager in America that is probably the majority of the people who are currently doing the same thing to Target, to Budweiser Light, or Anheuser-Busch altogether. And after people like me pointed out, because everybody started buying Modelo, and I went, guys, the same company who owns Modelo owns Anheuser-Busch. So you're not making them pay for it. They're not losing any money. You're just buying one of their other beers. Well, apparently there was other people besides me who said that, because guess what? Now that entire company has lost so much money, they're worried that they're going to go out of business. And everybody on the other side of this, and this is why I bring this up, because this goes back to what we're talking about, guys. I'm not fucking deviating and going down politics, because that's where I'm going. Pay attention. Okay. So literally everybody was like, I hate to see that, because what's going to happen is all these nice people are going to lose their jobs, because now Anheuser-Busch is laying people off in factories worldwide. And so their parent company is laying people off worldwide. And luckily, when that person talked about that on the news, it was on Fox, there was another person on there, a woman, by the way, wanted to point out, because the man said that part. A woman said, yes, but what's happening is all these other companies are now picking up the sales. They now, they were 25% of the market before, and 15% of the market are now outselling Anheuser-Busch and these other companies. So they're actually hiring people. And the guy finally said, I hope that every one of those people that got laid off from Anheuser-Busch gets a call from, well, why would you not? If I own a company and I have a specialty, that somebody who makes or distributes beer for me, say, okay, I need experienced drivers. I need experienced people to work in the factories. I need experienced people to make the beer. I'm not going to go, okay, if we have to expand now, that company has fired half their staff, but I'm going to look for Walt the janitor over here because I would rather train somebody from the ground up and spend, about 150 to 275 hours bringing that person up to pay and up to speed at $1 an hour instead of hiring somebody that can make this shit happen right fuck now. But if I wait long enough, somebody else is going to hire all those people, and my slow dumbass that wasn't hiring anybody that was already trained isn't going to get the market share, and they're all going to get the market share to expand faster than I am, and I'm going to lose my business. So if I'm that businessman, I deserve to go out of business, and I hope that happens. Because anybody that goes, I'm not going to hire those people, I'm hiring other people from outside. No one that is greedy and evil will in any way find that logical. They'll be like, get a hold of every one of those truck drivers and every one of those people that work for them and get them over here before someone else does, because they want to make the fucking money. So what's happening is the only way that works that doesn't benefit the human race is if nobody does anything and they let everybody just go without work. They're not going to do that because they're people that are evil and greedy are going to want those people because they don't have to train them. You just put them in a car, a truck, instead of saying Budweiser, it says fucking Modelo now, or whatever the country, Boston Lager. Okay. And he's going to do the same thing. Here's the route. You know how to do what you do. We do it a little different here. Here's how we do it. It's going to take you about 8 hours of training, and then you're going to make sure that guy knows what he's doing with the semi, and you're going to turn him fucking loose, and he's not going to be out of business or out of work for any length of time. And now he's going to sign your contract, and he's going to work for you. Okay? So the only panic that happens is if they convince you that you're all going to lose your jobs and no one's going to hire you. That's the only way it works. That's the same thing with people that are unions. And if you go on strike, I'll hire some dumbass to do your job. Do it, because what's going to happen is they're going to screw up so bad that people are going to be getting tired of it, and they're going to be going, who the hell is my new UPS guy? The guy delivered my package like 4 times to the guy down the fucking street. And you're going to complain and complain and complain, and eventually you're not going to ship things or deal with anyone who ships through that company because they have retards, pardon the language. They have people that are untrained doing the job. The company knows that, but they're going to make you be afraid, and they're going to try it. And if it works and nobody complains, they win. But if you guys pay attention and take a civics course or a history lesson, and you get behind these people, that's why people are like, oh, these stars, and now all of a sudden they're not crossing picket lines. Good for them. You shouldn't be doing it either. Why is that? Well, I don't want to have to pay. Those guys are making so much fucking money. I can't. So, but yet, if you were about to lose your job, you would wish that all these same people would help you. Do you see? Everyone has to get together here. That's my point. My point of all of this is that even if you're not aware of it, it's happening behind the scenes. It's happening for you spiritually behind the scenes. This is what Ra is trying to tell you in this entire session, is that you have to, the first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. You have to become aware and have the knowledge of what's happening to you and why these things are happening. And this is what Ra's trying to explain, and what I've been spending now 2 hours and 15 minutes trying to help you to understand, is that you have to become aware by paying attention to yourself and then knowing these things. And then if you have no idea what's going on, you have to look for someone like myself, but not just me. There's many of us out there, and vet us and make sure that we're not ripping you off. And that only comes through vetting by trial and error. Okay. And that's why I tell people, don't believe a word I've said, go down that road and keep looking. And you can ask anyone who has vetted me. They'll tell you, I kept waiting, and I kept waiting. Okay. I have references. Okay. And I'm not afraid of that. So I don't get annoyed if somebody goes, you'll excuse me if I don't take you at your word. No, I hope you don't. Because if you're looking for the knowledge yourself, that's the first step in avoiding the trap. You know there's a trap, and I have to trust in you. You have to trust me. So we have to earn each other's trust. Anyone who is like, you don't trust me, you don't trust me. If they start up with that with you, don't trust them. Don't trust them. That's like saying I'm a grown-ass man. A grown-ass man doesn't have to tell you he's a grown-ass man. He wouldn't even feel like he needs to say that. Children say that. I'm a grown-ass woman. I'm a grown-ass adult. No, you're not, because you said that. The fact that you feel that you need to say that is ego, and you're not. So it's the same thing with somebody who says, you don't believe me? I have all these titles. That person is ego, because I encourage you to not believe me and to look it up and to look at other sources. Because if you do that and you find somebody that you fit with better than me, that is where you're supposed to be, not with me, and I'm not going to get offended. If you do that and you find that, oh, I got screwed over, man, by this guy and that woman, and well, that's what's supposed to happen to you, so you know the difference. And that's when you look at other people differently, and then you will learn what to look for that is negative and wait to see if that person is showing you those colors. And then believe, even when you go, okay, I think this person is legit. Still in the back of your mind go, they may not be, and this could still be a ruse. So don't always trust somebody 100%, because if you trust somebody blindly, that's why it's called that, then you're opening yourself up to failure. So if you're not, and people go, well, then that's paranoid, bro. You're just not trusting anybody. I live on a planet where there's 14% of the population that actually know how to fuck over the other 86% of the population. They know it, they utilize it, and that's what capitalism actually is the ability to capitalize on you. And where'd that come from? The Anunnaki. That came from the conquering race who did come here to show them how to do that. And this is what Ra is warning about. The entire 106 sessions is to give you the knowledge in as many different parables as possible, that there is a trap, that you're stuck in it, and this is why. And I'm here to help interpret that. And I'm here to actually further that. And that's what myself and billions of other souls on this earth came here to do. And we've been afraid to say it for most of the time we've been on this earth until now. Because most of us now, well, I can't say most of us, we're still a small portion. There is still only about a 2% of the billions that are here that are willing to stand up and actually say this shit out loud that I'm saying to you and who I am. Because we become persecuted and prosecuted for doing so. Watch as I get popular, as time goes on, and the people around me who get popular, not because of me, but because of their own right, and that we all work together. Watch how much ridicule we will start getting, more than we already get now. And I've been deplatformed a year and a half ago, deplatformed from Google, and had to open all brand new accounts to even do a search on Google search engine. Not a joke. Let's continue.
About how many people populated the Earth totally at that time, that is, incarnated in the physical at any one time. Ra, I am Ra. I am assuming that you intend to query regarding the number of incarnate mind/body/spirit complexes at the end of the second major cycle, this number being approximately 345,345,345,000 entities. 22.10 Questioner, approximately how many were harvestable out of the total number? Ra, I am Ra. There were approximately 150 entities harvestable. 22.11 Question.
That's scary. 150 people only. How many people were alive on the planet at the time? 150 people had the possibility to graduate. It gets less now. Last time, literally, this happened, there was 35. And out of those 35, only one went. The other 34 returned as a wanderer.
A very small number. Then as the next cycle started, are these the entities then that stayed to work on the planet? Ra, I am Ra. These entities were visited by the Confederation and became desirous of remaining in order to aid the planetary consciousness.
The Confederation is what Ra used that term 40 years ago. We say coalition now. So that's why you hear coalition of planets or council. Council of Light, Council of Planets. The Orion Council of Light is part of the Venus, the Council of Venus, which is the Galactic Council. That's the coalition. The coalitions are what we say down on Earth. In Earth form here is the coalition. Off-world or spiritual is a consortium. You'll hear some refer to it. Council. The council is the people that are in charge. that are the governing body that has been vetted to do so, and that's made up. Just as why I brought up the whole nation tribe thing. The Orion Council of Light would be considered a tribe in the large Council of Venus, which is the Council of Planets, or whatever you want to call that. So he's using that term here to refer to that large body, which we would refer to now as the Council of Venus, or the Council of Light, or the consortium, or the Council of Planets. That's because down here we use more military terms to separate those because it's physical. So the coalition is a physical thing, whereas the astral or the spiritual is a council. And then there's people that are not part of the actual council. And that's what he's referring to here when he uses that term. Let me back it up a little bit so you can hear that again. So not necessarily the governing body, but the other people who are here to assist in all other ways, including helping people heal, helping people guide people, being there for people for counseling and stuff like that. That is not actually part of the governing body. So there are differences in what's being used as verbiage. Let me back this up a little bit and let it play. And this is what he is referring to here: is not the governing bodies, but all of the people that are part of all the little tribes, all of the little consortiums that are part of that coalition, or the non physical coalition.
22.11 questioner, a very small number. Then as the next cycle started, are these the entities then that stayed to work on the planet? Ra, I am Ra. These entities were visited by the Confederation and became desirous of remaining in order to aid the planetary consciousness.
But before I get to that, I want to point out what Cassie said. Agreed. That's what we're here to do. Cassie said, I'm going to put it up on the screen so you can see it and read it to those of you listening on MP3. She said, see, I feel now the harvest is going to be way bigger now. But that's just what I've seen and felt. No, that's the point of us being here, is for that to happen. And then she went on to say that's exactly that. That's one of the reasons that we are here, is to facilitate that and bring that into being, because the people were stuck for so long in that time, right? In that time of the darkness ruling the land, the Fenrir the wolf covering the land of darkness, in darkness, the sky. That is the evil being in control. That is the devil ruling the planet for a time. That time is over now, so the veil is lifting. That they had put on the veiling, and that's allowing people to naturally ascend. And so many have been stuck here for so long that the harvest, we're hoping, is going to be astronomically huge compared to what it's been lately because of that. Let's continue.
This is correct. 22.12 questioner, what type of visit did the Confederation make to this group of 150 entities?
So the word Confederation is being referred to by Ra as that group that is not the council, that is off-world, that is spiritual, and that a lot of the people down here are part of. I am, okay? But that's the word that he's using for that body that is non-physical on the planet, but is not the actual council, the ruling body. And you have to realize that that's not like the ruling class down here. It's not like the class system or the caste system at all, right? Mill says, I'm so Ra. Yeah, well, most of us are. And that, in fact, Ra came from Orion. Following the Orion Crusaders, and my entire group. That's why I call my show Orion Rising and my book Orion Rising. And the coalition, the Orion Coalition of Light, that's the physical manifestation on Earth of us wanderers that are here, that are attached to the Orion Council of Light, which you mediums out there have probably been brought before or have heard of. And those are part of the Council of Venus and the Council of Planets. Okay, let's continue.
Ra, I am Ra. A light being appeared bearing that which may be called a shield of light. It spoke of the oneness and infinity of all creation and of those things which await those ready for harvest. It described in golden words the beauties of love as lived. It then allowed a telepathic linkage to progressively show those who were interested the plight of third density when seen as a planetary complex. It then left. 22.13 questioner, and did all of these entities then decide to stay and help during the next 25,000 year cycle? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. As a group they stayed. There were those peripherally associated with this culture which did not stay. However, they were not able to be harvested either, and so, beginning at the very highest, shall we say, of the sub-octaves of third density, repeated this density. Many of those who have been of a loving nature are not wanderers but those of this particular origin of second cycle. 22.14 Questioner, are all of these entities still with us in this cycle? Ra, I am Ra. The entities repeating the third density major cycle have, in some few cases.
So Mel, I wanted to bring that up. So you're saying the second star on the right. So okay, so in Orion's belt, if you're on the belt, there's three lights. Okay, so you're either from the one on the left, the one on the right, or the one in the middle. Right? So the second star on the right would be the one in the middle. That's where I'm from. I'm actually from there. The one on the right is more Celt. The one in the middle is Celt Viking, and the one on the left is Viking. Predominantly ruling classes of those particular planets, or they're not actually planets, they're not actually stars, they're actually not galaxies, but they are actually, well, I think they're galaxies within a universe, but some people say they're actually universes. Okay. So yeah, I'm from the middle one, and Peter Coyle, who was here earlier, he's from the one on the right, but we all came here together. Some of us, literally are what the Andromedans call the Patal, and that is what is manifest here as the Aryan race or the Viking race that is manifested, especially those with the DNA of the typo negative bloodline. That typo negative or O negative or negative, no genetic ties to Africa, that is only 10,000 years old, is a manifestation of that. It doesn't mean that only those people are from there, because most, it's still only, whatever it is, 10% of the population. That doesn't mean that all of them are in any way. That just means that that's the manifestation here. That means the people that are in that DNA could be evil, could be good, could be here for the first time. But it's a manifestation, a representation of the people that are here. So if you're from the middle, then you probably came here with the coalition when we all came here, and that particular group is from the 11th density and what we would call dimension here, the 11th density, and they're the Patal. So if you came from there, chances are you came with the coalition, or you're a part of the coalition down here. You came with the council. And I would not doubt that. And the reason that you found us in this particular room is because I am a beacon for those people to draw you in some way. And then other people here that are in this audience that are talking, Cassie for one, Peter for another, came with us all together here, with many other millions of people that are part of this billions of people and I would not doubt that, because I didn't, in fact, when you got here, not at any point did I feel your energy as something that was foreign to me. So I'm not surprised, and that's why I stopped there. Not surprised at all that you literally just jumped up and said, "Hey, by the way, I'm from the middle star in Orion's belt," and literally, I don't know what you feel about my energy, but I bet you're drawn a little bit more and feel a little bit more comfortable immediately, because you haven't questioned that I can see or feel at all, which means that you're very astute and attuned. So I would suggest that it would be a good thing that you integrate in with this group. I was also told by psychics that we were going to be expanding, and we have been, and I haven't announced that to anybody, not because I didn't want to expand, but because we still vet people, and we need to, but we also are not people who are exclusive and say, "Oh no, we have to put you through our rigorous rigmarole and make sure you're loyal," and because you're going to tell us that in your own right, and you're going to trust or not trust in your own right. So, but I just wanted to point out that is where I'm from as well. Okay, and that most of us that are drawn to, that's why I called my book and my show Orion Rising, drawn to the knowledge of Orion, which we have left all over this earth to remind ourselves of, and the other places in the Orion Nebula that are also prevalent here with many cultures, has been done on purpose to awaken wanderers in the future, in the present, in the past, in the now. Okay.
been able to leave. These entities have chosen to join their brothers and sisters, as you would call these entities. 22.15 Questioner: were any of these entities names that we know from our historical past, that have appeared as incarnated beings we find in our history? Ra, I am Ra. The one known as sound vibration complex, Saint Augustine, is of such a nature. The one known as Saint Teresa of such a nature. The one known as Saint Francis of Assisi of such nature. These entities, being of monastic background, as you would call it, found incarnation in the same type of ambience appropriate for further learning. 22.16 Questioner: well,
Now, some at that point would say, oh, well, here we go with saints. So that's the Roman Catholic Church. So obviously, this is a Christian indoctrination that they're trying to sell you that religion. And those people who were made saints were only part of that religion because that religion at the time was prevalent in the area that they lived in, and they were made saints afterwards, not because they were loyal to the church, but because they were doing things and actually performed miracles in their own right that they were not doing in the name of their church. You should know that about all saints. None of them said, I'm doing this because I am a Christian. I am doing this because I am a Roman Catholic, which is Christians. None of them were doing that. People who were made saints because of the things that they did for the human race, 100%. And the church itself is venerating them by making them a saint. And people assume those people must have obviously been, they were clergy in the church, and that's why they were made saints. Most of them had nothing to do with the church whatsoever. But they were made saints because of what they did. So the church itself was taking on their name to show people the holy stuff, because the churches themselves are not evil. It's evil people within these churches that have tried to corrupt the churches and control the churches. You have to remember, it's only 14%. That doesn't mean that all of clergy in every church they're all evil, because they're not. It's just like, that would be like saying all the Jews were evil because they all the Hebrews were evil because they crucified Jesus, and the Hebrews are scared to death that everybody thinks that, because they don't want them to hunt down the Jews and kill them. The truth is, it was one group called the Pharisees, and of that group of people that were called the Pharisees, it was only 2% of that total population that were doing it. Those people were the money makers and the evil people that were in charge. So they gave the Pharisees a bad name because they all happened to be in that sect, and they were the ones who had to get rid of Jesus because he was cutting into their profits. Truth. And I don't mean profits as in prophecy. I mean money. So they had to get rid of him because he was teaching the opposite of what they were. He was cancel culture at its finest 2,000 years ago. Do you see? Okay, let's continue, right? Yeah, the Seven Sisters, the Big Dipper. Rick, thank you. So let's continue. And all of that, you should look into that, astrology, guys, and why all of those things were drawn for what they are. Those are all based in mythology, and they're all based in look up Orion and find out why Orion was drawn and where that comes from and what that means. That's all very, very esoteric and means everything. Even the Seven Sisters, being called the Seven Sisters. That's literally a pharaoh. That's literally someone who was in charge, a female who was very, very prevalent in spirituality, called the Seven Sisters. Look that up and see what I'm talking about. So literally that was named after that, and it takes on a different meaning in different countries. The Greeks, Orion was from the Greek pantheon, not the Egyptian, but the Seven Sisters is from the Egyptian pantheon, but it's the same meaning, the same constellation. So all around the world, being a theologian, I study this stuff. All around the world, you have different nations that had different interpretations of what the very same things, oddly, okay, these very same constellations in the sky were different peoples who didn't at the time have any communication with these other people, called it something different. Some called it a male and some called it a female, but they drew it the same. And then they found that out about each other. The Greeks and the Egyptians communicated, and the Romans, they all communicated eventually. And they were like, wait a minute, that's weird because we have all that same stuff here. So that's why people started looking at, well, where did they all base it from? Must have been Mesopotamia. Well, the truth is the Mesopotamians were around when the Greeks were already around. Acadia, the country to the west of literally with a more than a 5,000 mile border with the Mesopotamians was a Greek nation called Arcadia. The Akkadians were Greeks. Okay. So literally you have to look this stuff up to understand or understand the motivation behind that. And that's why it annoys me with Zechariah Sitchin, because he borrowed Anu from, he's thinking that the Mesopotamians must have been talking about the Akkadian word Anu, which meant the god Anu, when the words came up on the tablet that said Anunnaki. And was like, well, then that must mean the god Anu came down. That's not what that word means in that language of the Mesopotamians. It's actually Anunnah, which means royalty, not God, means prince or king. The king came, not the god came, not an entire species came from space. Not at all does it mean that, but it has been translated wrongly in 1948 and then purposefully translated wrongly again in 2012 and still perpetuated to this day by the draconians that are in charge of the History Channel, that are in charge of the money that they're paying, Giorgio Tsoukalos and all of them who have agreed to their agenda. And literally they worded that those from the heavens came, and that became the Anunnaki out of the god Anu came down. Okay, so the god Anu came down, became those people. So the god Anu is now a race of people, Anunnaki, one word, and that's actually replaced the cherubim and the Nephilim. Okay, so the Nephilim before, they were called the Nephilim, and they were, for all of eternity, they were called the Nephilim, and they were on planet X, planet 10, and that they were the ones who were returning all the time to mine the gold here until 1948. And in 1948, the translation was Anunnaki was the god Anu that the Akkadians talked about, which was not a reference to the Nephilim, which they thought was from Mesopotamia, and they're claiming that was older. And then in 2012, Giorgio Tsoukalos says those from the heavens came, and they started perpetuating Anunnaki as an entire species. And then in somewhere around between 2016 and 2020, then all of a sudden the Nephilim is eradicated, and that's the Anunnaki now. Oh, we've discovered new information, which I still haven't found where that new information is in history, that the race of beings that was the Nephilim is now Anu and the Anunnaki who came here. They just changed the Mesopotamian god tree and added the name in, and they did that in 2017. And now everyone just goes along with it. That's like changing the word homeless to unhoused and saying it means something different. Like janitor and custodian, they joke about in the Twix commercials over here in America. Left Twix and right Twix are completely different companies who make the Twix, and they hate each other, and they're competing because they make the exact same thing, but one's on the right side, one's on the left side. Well, justified by what? So when you open it up, which is the right and which is the left? Because if I open it to the right-hand side and pull it out with my right hand, if I flip it upwards in a clockwise manner, the right side is the right side. But if I pull it out with my left hand when I'm looking at the word Twix on the left side and turn that up counterclockwise with my left hand, the right side is now the left side and the left side is now the right side because it's upside down compared to the other way. So wait a minute, is that blasphemy? Will I curse myself if I call the right Twix the left Twix and the left Twix the right Twix, and which one's the right one? They need to start printing on the back of which one is right and which one is left to make that valid. They're joking about it themselves. Okay, and so they show you that by saying, janitor and custodian, ghost and spirit. And that's what they're saying with unhoused as opposed to homeless. Homeless means you don't have a home. Unhoused means you don't have a house. So what's the difference between a house and a home? Do you see? A house is a place. A home is an environment. So I'm not unhomed. I don't have a house. I'm unhoused. Do you see? And so that's how they're trying to tell you there's something different about that. We can't say homeless because that we can't just say that. It's just mean and evil. So we'll say unhoused. We can't say illegal alien. We say undocumented migrant. Do you see? It's somehow different. But that's the agenda. The agenda is to change everything so that you don't understand the language that you're speaking and they know who their opposition is. Their opposition is the people who do not conform to the way they speak and think. And they penalize you for it, and they know instantly who you are when you ask them a question. Do you see? And that's why they're doing that. They're not doing that. They're doing that to control you, but they're also doing that to identify themselves with each other. If I give you a memo that says you don't say the word harassment anymore, I remember when that changed, and it became harassment. So they changed the affliction of how you say the word, but it means the same thing. However, if you're one of the slaves, you say harassment. If you're one of us, you say harassment. So to conform, you have to say harassment, or they know you're the enemy. They change words when you conform, so that only they, and they have to continue to keep changing words, because every time people conform, they have to go, okay, that was the old way. We got them to conform, but now we have to change something again so that we know who we are compared to them. That's why they do that. And then that also creates confusion. It's part of the Hegelian dialectic, which they changed. I write about that in my book. I got to get that damn thing published. All right, let's continue.
Then, as the cycle terminated 25,000 years ago, what was the reaction of the Confederation to the lack of harvest? Ra, I am Ra. We became concerned. 22.17 Questioner, was any action taken immediately, or did you wait for a call? Ra, I am Ra. The Council of Saturn acted only in allowing the entry into third density of other mind/body/spirit complexes of third density, not wanderers, but those who sought further third density experience. This was done randomly so that free will would not be violated, for there was not yet a call. 22.
Rick, she was trying to type axe with a AS, an axe, or instead of ask. That's the Ebonics over here. The African Americans will openly say out loud, instead of saying I ask you a question, they always say I ask you a question. And I laughed that's why I posted X, because Twitter changed their name to X, so you can't tweet anymore. You have to X me. And so I laughed and said, all the people who speak Ebonics, that's what we call that language over here, by the way, is Ebonics, will love that, because now you can, I'm going to X you and ask you a question, because they don't say the word question either. They say question. That's just like what you hear people saying, mountain. That's the correct way of saying that word in English. It is a mountain. And you will hear people say mountain, mountain, mountain. They don't say T. There's no T anymore in there, right? That's how language changes. You guys have a different dialect than I speak here in California. The English have a different dialect from yours. Even though we speak the same language, we have a different dialect, so we say different words. You guys will say Joey is a little baby Joey. And Americans are like, what the fuck are they talking about? A Joey? What is that? But to every Australian, you know what that means, right? Just like we talked about before, where smoking a cigarette, if you're in the UK, is you're having a fag. You say that over here in America, and that means you're gay and you're having sex with a man. Okay. Do you see? So she was saying it's sad but true, because I said the word, ask you a question. And so that's literally, and then I mentioned that earlier on, that African Americans speak that way amongst themselves, not because they're ignorant and uneducated. They speak that way on purpose so that they won't sound like the rich aristocrats. I'm not buying into the man's game. So I'm not talking like I'm talking now, because they consider this the rich white racist language. Okay. This is why they say English is racist. English is classist. It's not racist. It's not done biasly against one particular species, one particular creed. It's of everyone that is not them. And that's not just black people. If it were, they wouldn't have named black people white Anglo-Aryan names. So you can't say, the truth is, if you are educated, you can't say white people, this is what they're teaching you with the critical race theory, is that all white people are just inherently, because of their DNA, racist, because they're white. So you're born racist. Like you have some DNA memory that if you're left on an island by yourself, you're going to immediately just see someone from another race and go, I hate that nigger. And you're going to know all the words. I hate that chink. I hate that gook. I hate that wop. because you're going to know those words. You don't know any of that. That's like saying a pit bull is inherently evil and aggressive and a killing dog. It is not. It has to be taught. Okay. And what they're teaching this generation, especially in the United States, but all over the world, is that the DNA you have is going to dictate your class. So they're actually showing you their hand. They're actually showing you their hand while trying to teach you the opposite. They're trying to teach you slavery, but to do so, they have to expose themselves. Okay? They can't put their dick in your ass and rape you unless they unzip their pants and pull out their penis. Okay? So you have to see them pulling out their penis and stop them. And that's what they're doing with racism. They have to sell you on class dynamics. If you're white, you're automatically racist because you're born in a certain class of people that owns everything. So they have to tell you, without telling you outright, well, it's us white people who actually own the world. But what they're doing is, instead of saying it's 1% of the population of the world, and they just happen to all be white, by the way, and Aryan, and they're saying all white people want to enslave all other races. So they have to give you, there's some truth. Even when they tell lies, they have to put some truth in it. This is me showing you that the first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. So they're showing you, this is why I'm here to interpret everything on the planet. Even psychics have said that, who don't know what I'm working on, have actually said that out loud, and you can go and watch the shows. Some of you were there and heard these. That's why some of you are in here that listen to when I have these psychics read me. You're in there in the audience because I see you usually and say hi to you there. And I get read. Why we go to these places and have these people read us is because these people are uncovering this information. They don't know this about us. They don't hang out with us. Okay? And they'll even tell you that. And they're like, oh my God, this is crazy when you guys are here. Today, Jamie Watson-Wolf read not only Peter G.V., who's not here currently, but me and Cassie, okay, almost in a row. They didn't know as Peter, someone else in between. There a couple of people. Denise, who was here, she was there. Penny, you showed up. Rick, I don't think you were there, but I think even Peter Coyle showed up for a minute. But then she read me after Peter G.V. She read myself, not directly. There was a few in between us. But then right after me was Cassie. And she'll tell you that reading us is insane, crazy, because of the information that comes out and the stuff that is told then every time. And she doesn't hang out with us. We don't plan this stuff. I just happen to see that she was live. Most of the time she's live before I wake up, or I'm too busy doing breakfast and getting pills for my mom and taking care of the cat and doing all the morning stuff. And I don't see that she's live. Well, today she happened to be live before I started all that. So I plugged in my headset and jumped on with my phone and wandered around and ate breakfast while I was listening and got mom's pills and the whole nines. I got her food and the whole nines and cleaned everything up and sat down and turned on my computer. And by that time, it was time for me to have my reading. Jamie Watson-Wolf is what I was talking about. But also your countryman, O'Rourke. What is her first name? Marina? Don't quote me on her first name. She's actually got to be related to me somewhere because my mother's maiden name was O'Rourke. I've never talked to her about that. But she's from Australia and she does readings. And I was on her show last week and she did a reading on me. You were there, Rick. You remember her because you and I guessed she said, guess a number between 1 and 14. And I think you guessed 4 and I guessed 9 and she had picked 9. So she did a reading on me. We were the last read of the day and she was going to do you or myself because we were the only two who popped up a number right away. I think there was a couple other people afterwards. So you heard that reading, Rick, if you stayed there for the reading, which was very similar. Right. So she, Melinda or whatever her name is. No, it's not that. It's a different name, but O'Rourke is her last name. She's really good. Jamie Watson-Wolf is really good. Jamie Watson-Wolf read me today. And there's only been about 3 other people that I've had readings done by. In particular, I'm hard to read, so I only go to talent because of that. I have to actually open up and allow people to read me. I'm one of those people that if I don't want you to, yes, thank you, Marantha. Is that how you say her name, Marantha? That's Penny just posted that. Marantha O'Rourke. She's really good. She's from Australia, or at least she lives there. I think she moved there when she was a kid. But she's really good, very talented psychic. She has no idea. I have no ties to her. She has no idea I'm even promoting her right now. But you guys, if you see her live, jump on there. She's really good. Or Jamie Watson-Wolf. Jamie Watson Wolf goes live on Returning to the Old Ways, and she goes there every now and then, and her own group, which is what is the name of her group? Somebody in the audience that goes, or Penny or Rick or Denise. It's I forgot the name of her group. I was just there today. I don't even remember it. If you guys can remember it, please type it in the chat. That one you have to be a member of. You can join. You can go to. Well, actually, so it is. Yeah, it's private as well. Returning to the Old Ways. So either or. Okay, so let's continue with what Raw is talking about here, because I am deviating a little bit. Yeah, right. Penny tagged Rick. I think we tagged you today. No, we didn't. Maybe I'm not sure. I'll have to remember. Like Penny, do it, right? Denise, one of you guys, next time she's live, if I don't jump on there, tag Rick. It's usually a little early for you, Rick, because it's like 9 or 10 my time. So that's 15, 16 hours later. So I guess it would be about 7 a.m. for you or something. Right? It'd be early morning when she goes live. So sometimes she's too early for me because I'm not up yet. All right, let's continue.
0.18 Questioner. Was the next action taken by the Confederation when a call occurred? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. 22.19 Questioner. Who or what group produced this call, and what action was taken by the Confederation? Ra. The calling was that of Atlanteans. This calling was for what you would call understanding, with the distortion towards helping other selves.
Right, Peter, I'll have to remember to tag you, because you're right, you never sleep. I'll have to remember to tag you next time she's live as well, or either or. I'll tag you on both. I see, Peter, you're always tagging me when other people are live. I'll have to start tagging you and get you in there so you can see and maybe get a reading from. I'd like to see either Marantha or Jamie read you, Peter. I would like to see that. I would. So that would be interesting to see them. I haven't had you go to them yet, and I've talked to other people and gotten them there. I'll start tagging you, bro. Next time one of them are live. So guys, if you're there and I'm not there for either Marantha O'Rourke or Jamie Watson Wolf, tag Peter Coyle and tag myself to get us in there, especially Peter. He'll jump in. If I'm not awake yet, Peter will be up because he's 8 hours ahead of me. So if it's 8 a.m. here, it's what is that? 4 p.m. for him, right? 8 hours, 8 and 8 is 16. So that's 4 o'clock, right? Or am I counting that wrong? No, I'm counting that right. Okay. So let's get so it'd be 4 p.m. for you, or somewhere after 4 or 5, 6 p.m. Peter, for you. And then Marantha usually goes live a little bit later. I usually catch her about 9 my time because she's in Australia. So 9 p.m. my time is 8 hours. That's 1700, or 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. It'd be 4 a.m., 5 a.m. for you, Peter, because you're on UK time. Right. Okay. So I know, right? Mel says, tag me too, please. So guys, remember that. And we'll try to get Mel in there, try to get Rick in there, try to get Peter in there. And I'm not as important. You guys don't have to have me there. But if you guys want to hear those people read me, especially Jamie Watson Wolf, because she usually comes on for a couple of hours and John's a lot of people. But I'd rather have her read you guys than read me, because I've had her read me, probably once a month or once every 2 weeks. I'll hop into one of her shows and let her do a read on me if I have a question. And I never pose a question. I always let the universe give me to see if the universe ties in, okay, universe, I have questions for you guys, but I'm not going to voice it out loud. And she picks up on that regardless. That's how I know they're better psychics. When they pick up on a question that I don't ask out loud. One of the super soldiers was trying to trick the girls from the Czech Republic when they're channeling Oli, and asked for his activation code, and they literally channeled the question. If you're legit and you guys are really psychic and up there, tell me what my activation code is. And the answer was, your activation code, and I can't tell that out loud because it is an activation code, and only you know that, and that was true. So he literally asked that, and I did the same thing. I didn't ask that question. But I did the same thing, asking a question that I knew they could never know the answer to, and that's the Podrezka girls, Ivana and Ilana Podrezka from the Czech Republic, and they've been like Raw. only higher up than Ra in vibration, and they've been channeling that entity now since 1994 or 1997, and they're still doing it to this day. I still have communication. They still give me translated into English sessions that they still do. You should look them up. Okay, so if you don't know Czech, you'll have to get a translated version of their stuff. They did post one of their books translated into Italian and English, and so most of their stuff is done in their native language. But if you get a hold of them personally, they'll send you a copy translated into English. I've been working with them for about 7, 8, almost 10 years now. Not as much as I should, and I may be doing them again and talking about it on the show as time goes. We'll see. It depends on what goes on in the universe. And right now I'm focusing on larger things and letting them do their thing. But I gave them exposure for about 4 years. I was helping them out, and I didn't realize I had a reputation for doing that, because people in the know, when they were like, help us with that, they were like, no, the guys from Orion Rising got you already. And so I was like, what? Wow, I didn't realize those people were paying attention to my show. But I was told by psychics that everything that I say right now is being monitored by the governments, the cabal, and off-world. And in the third dimension, off-world, and by the coalition. I already knew the coalitions were doing it, though. All right, let's continue.
The action taken is that which you take part in at this time, the impression of information through channels, as you would call them. 22.20 Questioner, was this first calling then at a time before Atlantis became technologically advanced? Ra, I am Ra. This is basically correct.
I was talking about this today on Jamie Watson Wolf, because she was doing a reading on, I think it was Peter Coyle at the time. No, I'm sorry, Peter GV, not Peter Coyle. Peter GV at the time. And she was talking about where Atlantis was. And for those of you who are familiar with the Greek-Roman pantheon in history, that is what we call Atlantis now, because the Romans and the Greeks called what was out beyond the Pillars of Hercules Atlantis. All of the Viking in the north, the Celts and north, referred to that as High Brazil. Okay, so it's the same. The people who lived on High Brazil are the people of Atlantis. When you go at the Book of Kells and find out the coordinates of High Brazil, and then you take the coordinates from the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians of where Atlantis was, you will find that it is exactly the same place in the water, out beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is out of the Mediterranean into the Atlantic Ocean. And you'll find that High Brazil, those of you in the UK, is the same. And even though some people will try to say, no, they're completely different. No, they're not. They were the same. If you actually look at the coordinates of where they were on the maps, you'll find that it was the exact stretch of land that was occupied that space in history that is now slid to Antarctica. And that is where Atlantis or High Brazil, it now resides on the Earth. And that was when the Earth flipped over on its axis, when the people of Atlantis stopped the Earth's rotation in its core, and the mantle continued to shift, and all of the continents were floating around and moved around, and the planet, like I said, flipped over on its axis and flipped back up on its axis and been wobbling ever since. This is told in history, by the way. It's not something that I made up. Been told in history. And that was when, because of doing that, it cracked the dam of the ice dam that was holding back millions of decaliters of water that had melted after the ice age, and all of that flooded into, this is the deluge, all of that all that water, billions of decaliters of water. At the same time, the ionosphere popped, and that was the raining for 40 days and 40 nights. All of that is the same deluge, by the way. And that occurred because, and some people say that it had to do with a meteor that came too close to Earth that flipped the Earth over on its axis. But these things all happened at the exact same time in history. Science is now starting to understand that. And that they don't know what was the chicken or the egg, which caused it, whether all of that was at the same time, because that was exactly at the same time as the War of the Gods. And that also could have been at the exact same time when Moldeck exploded and the planet Venus came flying into, not Venus, one of the other planets in our solar system, Jupiter, or one of them, was not quite in orbit and then was changed and was flying around and then got caught in our orbit and settled where it is. And then we had to move. That was the exact same time period that we had to move the moon into place of where it is now to keep the ecosystem, because our ecosystem was destroyed when all of this happened. All of that is not 5 separate events in time. When they have investigated it now, they're realizing all of that happened at once. So all of that could be said, oh, well, all of that was a coincidence. It was just a meteor that flew by. However, the history that tells you of that was that the meteor that flew by was sent here to destroy us because the people of this solar system were at war with another solar system and being invaded. And that was told in history of the conquering armies coming here and fighting. And in 1948 at Roswell, New Mexico, which I did 27 or 28 episodes about that interview with the alien that didn't exist in that place, that didn't happen, where it was just a weather balloon, but the CIA has record of it. And I got copies of that record from the woman who was the nurse who was the empath talking to the alien, who stole all the information, and just before she was going to die from cancer, gave it to the world. And I got a copy of it, and I played it on air and did 27 episodes 2.5 years ago, or 2 years ago now, depends on the reality that you came from, because it was right after I did the Law of One the first time. So it was somewhere during COVID. Anyway, you can go back in my archives and watch that on Orion Rising, or wherever you listen to your podcast, your MP3 podcast, or go to podbean.com and look up Orion Rising, because I pay them money to actually post my podcast for the world. And you can go there and listen to it, because I know it's still up there. They haven't controlled that. And that talked about that, in fact, invasion, where her race of people who were a conquering race came here to this earth and were fighting against the race that was already here, that was the conquering race that was here, that enslaved the world, Anunnaki, right? That was replaced another race named in history that they tried to eradicate so you wouldn't know about. And that this other conquering race, which came here at the time, which is the Orion Crusaders, who we chased here, got here and then ran away. But there was already people that were already here prior to that who had conquered this place. And that goes back hundreds of thousands of years. Well, not quite. That goes back at least 25 to 75,000 years. Okay. So all of that is not separate events that happened. Everyone, they want you to believe that all happened at the exact same timelines. And if you, and history's starting to bear that out now from these people investigating who don't even believe in UFOs, don't believe in aliens, don't believe in gods. And they're actually proving that all of these things happened at the exact same time between 75,000 years ago and 12,000 years ago. And then again, 1938 to 1948, when all of these events took place around the world. Okay. So I'm going to pause it here with 5 minutes left in this session, because it is 6 p.m. I've been on the air for 3 hours. I'm going to get off air so I can make dinner for myself and for my mother. But like I said, next time O'Rourke is live, which she usually goes tonight, so she might be on tonight. Tag me if I can get on there. I will, just so that you guys can see. But Jamie Watson Wolf, she usually goes in the mornings. I don't know what days. She's random. She doesn't do it like on Wednesday or Thursday, or she does it whenever she feels like going on. Today, she didn't know she was going to do that. She said that. I didn't wake up thinking I was going to do it. And then all of a sudden I was tugged to go live, and she did it for 3 hours or so. She was live and read like 25 people. That's really cool that she did that. So, I'd love to see Peter. We'll tag you. I'd love to see her read you. Definitely Mel, you're new. I would love to see what she says to Mel. That would be interesting. But Mel, stick around. I believe that you will, and talk to people, because whether you trust me or not. I usually say this at the onset of meeting somebody, that we'll be working together in the future. Usually scares people in the beginning, and they're like, I don't know who this guy is, and I don't know what he's about, and he's just telling me this crazy shit. And then he was saying all this crazy stuff. And then I let you run. Cassie, I said that too, and it took her a year of vetting me without me knowing about it. Because I won't chase you. That's not my job. I have more important things to do. So I don't recruit. Religion recruits you. Spirituality waits for you to find it. Okay. So I don't recruit. I wait for you to find me. That is my job. I do what I do. And you either are someone who will gravitate towards myself and all the people I work with, or you won't. And so I'm not here to try and go and find people and make you hey, come on, man, you got to come and work with us. You have to decide what you're going to do. And people that drives people crazy who are trying to get popular and make money, because I'm not about that. I would love to make money. We all have to make money because we have to have a living, because we have to pay in this until everything is free. We have to pay for food, and we have to pay for housing, and we have to pay for everything, because they've sold everybody on the idea that you need to have money. So because everybody agrees to that, we have to have money, right? And so I know you guys all do as well, right? And that's why I don't go chasing after anyone. I don't do that, because you're either going to be drawn to this group and the people that I work with, and you'll find out who those people are quickly if you stick around. And if you have the instincts to do so, and the eyes to hear, and or the ears to hear, and the eyes to see, and the mind to know the esotericness of it, you will then gravitate towards us. But if we don't fit, I'm not going to fight that. I'm not going to try and make that happen. So if it's not me, it'll be somebody else, or you're doing it. And that means that you'll come in, teach me what I need. There'll be some trade. You'll learn what you need to learn, or whatever. And then you'll move on and do your thing, or you're going to already, and you already are, which I don't know whether you are or not, you could already be doing what I do somewhere else, or not. You see my point? So because of how it works here, I don't try to in any way go after anybody. I just do my thing. If I were trying to get popular, I wouldn't be doing this at all. I'd be talking about shit that would get me paid. You know what I mean? Honestly. So, when I go live, I get 5 to 10 people if I'm lucky. Some people are that would be, but they would fail and stop doing what they're doing. If I were trying to make money or trying to be popular, I wouldn't be doing this. This is the wrong thing to do. So when people say, how do you get popular in spirituality? You don't. That's the truth of it. You just don't. Until the world becomes spiritual leaders will be small. But those who we affect many. And that is why we do it. So, all right, guys, I love you guys. Have a great night. I will see you either live Monday, because that's when Jacqueline and I are going to go live, or her and I will be filming then, and it'll be live at some point. I will let you guys know as soon as I know what we're doing, when I talk to her, if we're going live on Monday. And if so, I will put that in the chats and up on my page so that you're aware of it. And I know she will do the same. So we will advertise. And if we're just going to film it, we'll advertise that as well. And she'll let me know when it's going to go on the air. Either way, you guys should tune in, because if you know Jacqueline Taylor and you know myself, when her and I get together, it's very 4, 5, 6D conversation. This one is I'm going to try and start at a low vibration and pull people along with us. But I'm going to hit you with science and math very fast, which is going to be high level. And then we're going to both gank you into high spiritual mode. And that's why we were talking about maybe not doing it live, because that's going to confuse people. And so the questions are either going to be 100 million or none, and it's going to be crickets because people aren't going to get it. But we're doing this on purpose, because most conversation that happens is low vibration to mid-level vibration. And there's not a lot of conversation that happens on the air that is very high vibration, because we know that we'll only get 3 or 4 people tuning in, because the group of people that understand us when we actually want to have an adult conversation is very small. There's a group of us that gets together on the last Sunday of every month to have a meeting and an intention, like a prayer group, but we're not doing it in a religious way. And that is usually 4 or 5 of us, 3 to 5 of us, because that is limited, even though we advertise it for everybody. Most of the people don't want to show up because they're like, what is all that about? And they have no idea. And then the stuff we talk about there is such high level. Literally, when Jacqueline and I went, and I've talked about this on air, when we've done it live, you can go and watch it at Earth Day 2020. You can watch Jacqueline and I talking literally at that time live. People in the audience were asking if we were still speaking English. Not a joke. That happened live. Virginia's mother, who was sitting next to her, and she was my co-host, Virginia was. She was the co-host. Her mother actually asked her when Jacqueline and I were talking, are they still speaking English? And she actually said it to us on air. My mother just asked that question. Other people piped in and said they were asking the same thing, and people communicated that to us afterwards. Her and I get going literally in a group where there were 6 or 7 of us, very high level conscious speakers talking, and an oracle was like, this is what they do. And then they hit this area that I have no idea what they're talking about. So this conversation is going to be kind of like that. We try to keep it to where people get us, but we're trying to also pull people up to 6D thinking on purpose. So there's going to be some tug and pull if you want to get out of, hey, dude, what's up? You see that football game the other day? Yeah, man, that was a great game. You want to have an adult conversation? Tune in, because this is going to be a high level, and we're going to be talking about the power of squares. So that's literally going to be like, cubes and like the metronome cube and how that pertains to the Fibonacci sequence and the golden mean ratio and what that means for the universe itself. We're going to go there. Just know that. That's what it's about. Okay. So it's going to be the power of squares, and that's going to quickly go into, the dimensions and sacred geometry. And so that's why I said I'm going to start it in science, in history, and go forward into spirituality. And we're going to yank you quickly into that and talk about it. Okay. We've already decided the topic. That's why we got together. All right, guys. I love you guys. Have a great day. Hopefully we're live. Her and I are live on Monday. I'm going to try and convince her to do that. But if not, we'll let you know. And then we'll try to be there when it airs so we can talk in the chat and answer questions. But I prefer live with a Q&A. She knows that. That's why her and I usually do that. But she's been recording it and then posting it lately. I started doing that when I was doing my show for a while. I would record and then that way I could edit if I needed to. I just got away from doing that. I did that for a short time and then just went, screw it. I'm going live. It's easier. Right? Because if you have any problems with the internet when you're recording, you can edit that out and then continue. In live streams, you can't do that. Right? That's why a lot of times that people do that so that they can control that. That's why television does that. That's why nothing's live, hardly ever, except for the news these days, because they don't want to look stupid. So they record everything and then edit it and then play it to you. And that way they can also drive the narrative and make sure the narrative is exactly what they wanted. Nobody gets out of control. So that's also a control thing, right? All right, let's go. I'll see you guys next week or Monday or whenever. Otherwise, I'll see some of you on some of these psychic shows, right? Not because I'm doing it. I could. I'm a medium. I just don't do that. I've moved into teaching and back into teaching, I should say, because I was doing that most of my life. Literally started teaching by the time I was 20. But by the time I was 21, I literally was learning until I was 19 and started teaching thereafter, shortly thereafter. And then have done that my entire life. Got away from that, went into the interviewing and producing to help, because I was also doing that behind the scenes. I'm not going to get involved in that, but to the world coalitions. And those of you who know me know that and know what I've done, worked for governments behind the scenes, was a spy, right? Was a spy. For the Irish government, working with the American government and the UK governments, but only doing that to get inroads to actually put together an entire coalition that is now currently separate from the world governments, helping to assist that, which we were working at for generations to set up in the background and then tie them all together, which we did. And now then, because of that, coming forward in time to last year, we are now announcing ourselves to the world when the coalition announced to the world that they were no longer afraid of the evil coalition that was in charge. So once they propped themselves up, we started popping up around the earth, and you hear about all these coalitions now that are attached to this Council of Venus or the Galactic Council. You're hearing that all these coalitions down here on Earth. People like myself who are wanderers standing up and going, oh, I'm not even from here. But I have had psychics say that who didn't know that about me. And you can go and watch Jamie Watson Wolf go, wait a minute, they're telling me you're not even from the earth. Peter GV was there that day, right? And he was commenting about that and laughing about it. But Peter and the group here, we're not from here. They came with us from Orion to come here, by the way. Cassie, too, who was here earlier, came from Orion. And Mel, you came from Orion, coincidentally. He says knowingly, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? Know what I mean? Nice to meet you. Please stick around. Vet us as we vet you. If you fit, then we'll work together. And if not, you'll do what you're going to do and what you came here to do. Because if I believe that I'm right and you are who I think you are, you're already doing it anyways. And if you're not, because you're just waking up and remembering who you are, you're looking for somebody to say, hey, wait a minute. Am I right in why I'm here? And if that's the case, you came to the right place, because this is part of what we do. We help, we assist, and we're going to go forward getting very big and doing that to this earth. And you can go and watch Jamie Watson Wolf talk about that when she has no idea. And Marantha O'Rourke, also, who has no idea, also mentioned that without any prodding from me. And people are like, wow. And I'm like, well, they're set up. They're oracles. They're set up to validate. That's why. And that's why some of the other people in this audience right now can attest to that, because they were there to witness that. And it wasn't because we set that up. And literally, O'Rourke said, I don't know you. And I want that said, that I know about you. I've heard of you. And I think you have a podcast, but I don't know that what you do. And she said that, not because I told her to say that, not because we were trying to get over on you, but she said that because you can see the truth in her eyes. And that she was saying that and saying, I know a little bit about you, but this is what I'm being told. Same thing with Jamie Watson Wolf. She doesn't follow me, even though we're friends. She doesn't follow me. She's not here listening to my show. She has no idea what I talk about, no idea of any of this, but yet you would think she does because of what she says. And Rick is here and Penny's here who can tell you about that. All right. So Mel, if you are who I think you are, we'll be working together in the future. And if not, that's because you and I don't fit. That means that you were supposed to be doing your own thing or working with other people. And that is, we're all serving the all. We're all serving the one. We're all serving these people. We're all serving the betterment of this condition that has been purposefully stifled, which is supposed to be stifled anyways, the veiling. But it was then usurped and controlled in a way that is not normal, but allowed. And we are here to get extra credit from the higher levels that we're from. I don't talk about that very often either, but we're here for that sacrifice to do that. And 99% of the population of the universe won't do what we're here to do. They don't like this. They even joke about it from up there. You're the crazy ones who went down there. We don't want to do that, man. They don't want to be here. And so I give them a hard time sometimes. All right. I love you guys. Have a great night. Now I am rambling and talking about shit I shouldn't be talking about. Right? But that was for Mel's benefit, that part right there, Mel. You know that. All right. We'll talk later. The rest of you guys, I'll see you either on somebody's psychic show. I'll be there to witness it and maybe get a reading or not. And if not, hopefully Monday we'll be live with Jacqueline. And if not, that'll go on the air at some point. Otherwise, I'll see you next Friday for more of the Law of One. All right, guys. Have a great night or morning.